What's up, everybody? Welcome into the midday show. No Bob Cooney today. He has some family business to take care of, so you get me, Bill Colarulo, and the one and only Amy Fadul. What's up, Amy?
Hello, how are you?
And as always, our producer extraordinaire, Raymond Dunn. What's up, Raymond?
How are you?
I'm doing great. We have a great show scheduled for today. I can't wait. 10:30. We're going to be joined by our good friend, Derek Gunn. I haven't had an opportunity yet to talk to Gunner about everything that happened with mandatory minicamp, the OTAs, and more importantly, some of the press conferences that happened. Mainly Jalen Hurts. There was a lot of chatter about, well, did Jalen Hurts pass an opportunity to say something kind about Nick Sirianni? I think John Kincade on the morning show said he needs to show him more grace. But I want to talk to Derek Gunn to say, hey, are we looking too much into this, or is there something going on with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni? We also got to do some Phillies talk later on in the show. They lose a tough one last night, 9-3 to the Red Sox. Aaron Nola, one of his worst outings we've seen in a long time. I know there's people out there saying, oh, it's Aaron Nola again. He's been pitching well. This was a rough outing. It's the most runs he's given up since August of 2022. So let's not get too carried away with just one start, but we'll talk some Phillies later on in the show. And we're going to have some Fan Fest tickets to give out later on in the show as well. So make sure you keep it here. We'll tell you how you can win tickets to Fan Fest, which will be me and Amy's first one. So I'm excited about that. But let's start with some Eagles talk before D-Gun joins the show in a half an hour. Because one of the things is we did a Birds Insider special last night, me and Andrew DeCecco. And I went back and was listening to a lot of what was said at these press conferences. And Jalen Hurts was asked about kind of the new offense. And he said 95% of this offense is new. Listen to Jalen Hurts.
You know, right now, it's been a lot of new inventory in. Majority of it, probably 95% of it being new. And so it's just been that process, and it's been a fun process because you get to see what works for other people. And the number of coaches that I've had since I've been here, I've been able to take in a lot of new knowledge and new understanding. And so I think the goal coming in was to learn Kellen's offense and master it. And I think that's been a process. And I think by the end of it, I want it to be mine and have it in my own way. I think that's kind of a credit to, again, the lack of continuity with that, and it being a thing where I've kind of had to take all these new things and new voices and still go out there and be successful and efficient. And so I think that's exactly what's going to happen again.
So that's Jalen Hurts. And, Amy, there's a lot in there. Talks about the lack of continuity. We've talked about that before, 10th play caller in the last 9 years. But when he talks about 95% of the offense is new, do you think when this season starts, is that something that the Eagles can use to their advantage because teams won't know what the offense looks like? Or are you concerned that, hey, they may not come out to a hot start because 95% of the offense is going to be new?
I think, poor Jalen, he's never going to use a percentage ever again in his life, as much as he's going to be asked about this when we hear from him again in about 6 weeks. But 95% new, because he went on to clarify a little bit more about that. He basically said it's some of the terminology, the word he uses, inventory. Some of the terminology was new. There's some tweaks that made it 95% new, but overall the schemes and some of the ideas of the offense are the same and similar to what he's had before. So as far as like it being this brand new offense that no defense has ever seen before, no, I don't think the Eagles are going to walk out and be like, oh my gosh, you guys have never seen this crazy offense that with all this motion. I mean, some of the things that are new about it are the motion that you're going to see. I'm pretty sure they probably took out the wide receiver screens if they know what's good for them and know what the fan base is going to have. But some more activity with running back screens. I would hope that you're going to get Saquon Barkley involved. But when you're thinking about what it's going to look like, it's not a wholesale change as far as this new invented offense. It's going to be very similar to what you've seen Kellen Moore try to run in Dallas and to a lesser degree last year with the Chargers. 95% new inventory, new to Jalen Hurts, the way that it was presented to him. And Jalen went on to say, listen, some of the schemes, some of the ideas, some of the patterns are similar. They're formatted in a way that's different. So that's where he kind of he didn't walk back the 95%, but he tried to clarify it.
Yeah, it threw me off, too, when I heard the 95% because...
Well, it's eyebrow-raising because you're just Really? All of it's new? I mean, I think it just basically said, like, to me, that's just a way of saying it's Kellen Moore's offense.
Which makes a lot of Eagles fans happy. I know a lot of Eagles fans didn't want Sirianni involved at all. You and I have had that conversation before where I said, hey, I don't think it makes sense to completely throw out everything that Sirianni's done over the last couple of seasons because the offense has had a lot of success in 3 years. But the reason why I ask if it's an advantage or a disadvantage is because Nick Sirianni spoke as well after one of the mandatory minicamp practices, and he actually said he thinks that all these question marks could be an advantage for them to start the season. Listen to Nick Sirianni.
I think one thing that we have going into game one is very similar to what Green Bay has going into game one is, there's unknowns, right? There's a lot of unknowns that we won't be showing during training camp, and we won't be showing preseason games, and they probably won't as well. So, again, those guys have done a good job, whether it's an option route or whether it's different types of things with some options there. There's multiple things, but, again, those guys have done a good job learning the system. Kellen's done a really outstanding job teaching the system, and our quarterbacks have done a nice job of learning it and learning the system and getting the ball to the receivers.
So that was Nick Sirianni. And look, Sirianni sometimes at press conferences goes off the rails. We've talked about that before with things that he says. I'm not buying that it's going to be an advantage, that this offense is going to have things that they haven't shown before, because I think it's going to take some time. I don't think it'll be 95% new. I think you're right. A lot of it is just terminology, but there are going to be a lot of new things that Kellen Moore's doing with this offense that I'm not expecting them to be firing on all cylinders week one in Green Bay. And when he says, it's the same thing for Green Bay, well, I don't agree. Matt LaFleur's been there. Jordan Love's been there. A lot of that offense was there last year. They did add Josh Jacobs, which is a great addition for them. But I'm not buying that, hey, all these changes is going to be our advantage week one.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think of it as like a really nice used car. It's new to you, but it doesn't make it a new car, right? So it's new.
That's a good analogy.
I mean, it's a new offense to the Eagles. It's new for them. It's new in the way that they're going to be using some of their players. When you look at practice, I was out there one of the days of the mandatory minicamp and one of the days of the OTAs, and obviously, they show you somewhat. And you heard Coach Sirianni say, "We're not going to show you all the stuff, and you're not going to see it." But you did see a lot more motion than you're used to seeing. You're seeing a lot more of just guys moving around. It's a lot more active of an offense than what we saw on the field last year. Now, was it supposed to be more active last year and it just didn't turn out to be that? I don't know, because when Jalen Hurts is talking about the offense, it's certainly something he's familiar with in the fact that he's looking at these things and it's not completely new for him. But he pointed out himself, he said, listen, it's just another new voice and something I've done before, and it's going to be, we're all going to get on the same page. But I think that to say it's an advantage because it's 95% new is probably just overstating it. It's newer to the Eagles in the way that they're going to run it. It's newer to those of us who watched last year, and that's a really good thing. But they didn't reinvent the wheel. There's not some kind of brand new offense. It's what Kellen Moore has run. He's going to be able to run it with the best players he's probably ever had be able to run it, as far as Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley. That kind of a trio of really offensive weapons for Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's ever had that kind of level of talent across the board to be able to run all the plays he wants. So I'm sure he did open up his playbook a little bit because he wants to see what these guys can do.
Yeah, and I think a big difference as well is he's going to have a quarterback that never really had a skill set similar to what Prescott and Justin Herbert had. Look, Prescott's mobile, but he doesn't run the way Hurts runs. Justin Herbert certainly doesn't run the way Hurts runs. So one of the things that I'm excited to see Kellen Moore maybe bring to this offense is going to be that RPO again, because we've talked about how successful they were with the RPO in 2022 with Shane Steichen. Defenses adjusted last year. They went from averaging, I believe it was around 7.8 yards per RPO play down to about 4.8. That's a drastic drop-off when you're averaging 3 yards less per play. They just couldn't figure out how to counter to what the defenses were doing last year. So I am excited to see that element being new, because Kellen Moore, although he utilized RPOs, you look at last year in L.A., he called the third most RPOs. But now all RPOs aren't created equal,
Correct.
Right? Justin Herbert's not pulling the ball and taking it around the outside where you have that threat with Jalen Hurts. One of the players that we all love here in this town, Nick Foles, they ran a lot of RPOs differently, though. But I am excited to see him add that element to this offense. But I do have my concerns And I know it's only June and they're not even in full pads, but everything you heard coming out of minicamp was, hey, the defense was winning a lot. That doesn't surprise me. It's easier for a defense, I think, to play well learning a new scheme than it is for an offense. But does that carry over into minicamp? Does that carry over into the start of the season where maybe the offense isn't firing on all cylinders right away? And we know if they don't come out to a hot start, the noise is going to be real loud.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to take away when you watch those practices. The offense is going, but they're not going, right? The defense is there to make the plays. And those guys, there's much more competition on the defensive side when you're looking at some of the corners and you're hearing about these guys making, interceptions and knocking down the passes. And really more for the offense is about installing it. A.J. Brown knows how to catch the ball. You're not teaching him how to run that route again. He's won the job. Like, he's all set there. So that's really more of, when you look at it and they break it down and these guys go back, they're really more about getting the precise routes for that and making sure that they're very crisp and they're going, everybody knows exactly what they're going. And the defense is, all right, we're going to rush the passer on this play. We're going to, try to break up this pass on this play. So it was a little bit of a different kind of learning curve for each side because of where they are in the learning process for each offense or the defense, right? So your defense is out there trying to fly all over. Isaiah Rodgers is trying to show everybody that he's back. So I think he was definitely one of the biggest, I thought, surprises, because here's a guy that was, out of football for over a year. When he takes the field again, it'll be like 500 and something days from the last time he played an actual football game. So you have a guy that's like flying around. He wants to try to show. And then you have other Keely Ringo trying to show that the latter half of the season when he was getting those starts with the Slay injury, that he could do that. So it's hard to say, like, it's like when one of the first OTAs, like, Kenny Pickett looked good. Well, I'm sure he did. Like, he's trying to show what he's got. So it's you have to see it and think, all right, what am I looking at really? Like, what am I really watching?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier when you're playing defense that you can make up for things in an early June practice with just being aggressive, where you can't necessarily do that on the offensive side.
Yeah, and they're not there to do that. They're trying to get, like, all right, this is the brand. Like, we've never done this motion or this thing. Let's try to make sure we get it right the every single time.
Yeah, so that's the question I want to throw out there today, because Nick Sirianni's saying he thinks all of these changes are going to be an advantage. I want to hear from you. Do you think that all the changes are going to be an advantage? Because it seems like Amy and I are on the same page here, that it may take them some time to actually get adjusted to this new offense. And Ray Dunn, our esteemed producer, who people on YouTube are saying this show needs more Ray Dunn, so let's get Ray Dunn involved. Always need more Ray Dunn.
Oh, wow.
So what do you think, Ray? Do you think that all of these changes are going to be an advantage to the Eagles to start the season?
To start the season, probably not. I mean, I think we all look at this as something that's going to take them a little bit of time to get going. I do see Sirianni's point when he's talking about the Packers' changes, because they did have a lot of changes defensively, and he might be looking at, like, hey, they don't know what's going on that side of the football. When we talk about Jordan Love, talk about LaFleur, talk about everything they got offensively, yeah, we understand that. But they were, I think, bottom 5 in football, almost bottom 10 in football and defense last year. Part of the reason that they were, where they were record-wise when the end of the season came around, they ended up in the postseason. They did the beautiful thing of knocking off the Cowboys. Jordan Love was amazing. It was a lot of fun. I really hope that they beat the 49ers. But regardless, not going down that path right now. I think defensively, I think that's where he's looking at the advantage of, hey, they've got a lot of changes back there. They're going to be trying to figure out their own thing come week 1. We're going to be trying to figure out our own thing here. If I look at the talent on the field, and if we're trying to analyze every word of what Sirianni said there, I would take the Eagles offense over the Packers defense for week 1. Just pure talent-wise. So if two teams are trying to figure it out, maybe there is that advantage. Maybe that is where he was trying to go with that. I hate that I'm starting to speak Sirianni.
Yeah, look at you.
I don't like it, all right? I've listened to this guy talk too much. This guy starts to walk down paths, but now I'm starting to figure out where he's walking down. I'm starting to get the roadmap of Nick Sirianni. And I have done way too much Sirianni listening, where I think I might start to speak Sirianni, and it drives me insane.
So we have a new associate producer back there. I heard Ray Dunn giving him a flower speech earlier about how you need to fertilize and grow and all that good stuff.
That did, yes. That's my role around here. And much like Sirianni, the whole what do you do here? That's what I do here.
What is it you say you do here?
I give out flower speeches.
Now, you make a good point about the Packers defense. They do have a first-year defensive coordinator going into this year, Jeff Hafley, who was the head coach at Boston College last season. So this will be some changes for them. They did add Xavier McKinney at safety, who was a player I would have loved to have seen the Eagles add. But when I talk about is this an advantage or not, I'm really looking at those first 4 weeks before the bye, because I heard the morning show talking today as well about, hey, if the Eagles don't come out to a hot start, if they go 0-4, you may not see Sirianni after the bye. I don't One, I don't expect them to go 0-4, but I could never see a scenario where Jeffrey Lurie fires a coach that early in the season. It just doesn't seem like his MO. But when I'm talking about, hey, is this an advantage or not, I'm really talking about those first 4 games. So I want to hear from all of you out there. That's the first question we're throwing out to our listening audience today and you on YouTube. Are all these changes going to be an advantage or a disadvantage those first 4 weeks to start the season? You can get in by call or by text, 610-632-0975. And the reason that's so important is the midday show was at Brian Dawkins' golf outing last week, and I think you caught up with Brian Westbrook. Mm-hmm. And Brian Westbrook talked about how important a hot start is going to be for this team. Listen to Westbrook.
I think this team needs to start early. And I'm talking about in the season, winning early, get some continuity back, get that feel back for the team. I think Nick Sirianni lost it a little bit last year. But if they can get that back early, get it right back and now find a way to win.
So that's B. West saying get it back early. See, I have confidence in this team. I think they're going to be a good team. I picked them to win 13 games. But I'm not going to freak out if they don't come out early, like Westbrook says, because of all those changes.
Yeah, he basically says you got to come out early because he doesn't want – he's been in locker rooms before where it was like you have maybe a poor end of the season or something that happened earlier. And if you don't get that out of your mind quickly, that can kind of linger. And you're thinking, this might happen again. He doesn't want to have any kind of doubt really work its way into the locker room when you're talking about it. So come out, prove that the end of last season was not what this team is about. They knew that they could have done better. They should do better. They will do better. He's not saying go, 4-0, but just don't let it snowball. All right, if you have one bad game, that's fine. Erase it, flush it, move on with it. They did not do that at the end of last season. So when he's talking about you got to get off to a hot start, you just got to get that bad taste out of your mouth because that's what everybody's thinking about is what is this team going to look like? Because the last time we saw them, the product they put on the field to end that season, it was an historic collapse. No one's ever seen anything like it before. It's never happened.
No, not in a 17-game season where you don't finish with more than 11 wins after going 10-1. So here's an interesting question for you because we talk about what happened last season with the Eagles. Well, let's go look at the Phillies because they didn't have an epic collapse, but what happened in the NLCS, obviously, no one saw coming when they're up 3-1 against the Diamondbacks. They used that as fuel to start this season. They didn't hide from it. They didn't ignore it. They talked about it during spring training that they were hungry because of what happened. If you're Nick Sirianni, you're the Philadelphia Eagles, and you're starting this season, starting training camp in about a month and a half, are you just flushing what happened last year, or are you going to try to use that as motivation?
No, I mean, they've talked about it a couple times, and I think they're going to continue to have to talk about it. And the guys that you're asking about are the guys that were there for it, the Brandon Grahams, the Jalen Hurtses. You're asking them about that because those guys are the leaders in the locker room. They are the ones that have the bigger voice. So when you hear BG talk about, listen, last year was awful. We don't like that. We don't want to do that again. They're going to continue to be asked about it, and they have to expect it. I don't think that it's something you have to shy away from, and I don't think that they have, and I think that they will continue to try to face that up front because you're looking at a team that you can't ignore it. It's not like it's a completely different team. There's basically the exact, save, 3 or 4 guys, especially like when you're looking at big guys like, Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey, but really, essentially, it's the same team that held that collapse. And they knew it happened. Walking into that, the stadium at Tampa Bay, there was 0% confidence on the team, on the fans, on the coaching. I don't think anybody thought they were going to win that game.
That was tough to watch.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
was
jump.
really.
They knew it. Everyone knew it. So those guys have to own that, and I think they have.
Yeah, and I think they have to as well. I agree with you. I don't think you can hide from it. I think they have to take it head on. I think that's something they can learn from what the Philadelphia Phillies did because I loved their approach during spring training was they're going to use that as fuel and motivation. Now, I want to bring something up because Derek Gunn's going to be joining us after the break, and there's something I want to talk to him about, and I'm not trying to stir controversy here, but I do think it needs to be discussed. When Jalen Hurts was specifically asked about Nick Sirianni turning over a lot of his play calling or a lot of the offense to Kellen Moore, he was asked kind of a softball question. What does that tell you about Nick Sirianni? I think it would have been very easy for Jalen to say something positive about Nick, but this is how it went. Listen to Jalen Hurts.
What have you noticed about Nick being open-minded to change up the offense like he has. I mean, what's that say about him?
I mean, it's a great question. I don't know that I know the answer to it.
Well, what have you seen? What have you seen from him as far as doing that?
I think he's just, he's been great, and the messages he's delivering to the team. He's trying to be very intentional in what he's saying, and yeah.
So that was Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, I was on my honeymoon and I'm watching that press conference on the beach in Aruba and I'm losing my mind because I've been a supporter of Nick Sirianni and I'm listening to that and I'm saying, what is going on? Because Jalen Hurts is an intelligent man. He doesn't say anything that's not calculated, thought out. He does try to not answer questions, but to me,
That's
by
not a non-answer.
Exactly. So when we get back, Derek Gunn is going to be joining the show. D. Gunn is great at having his finger on the pulse of the Eagles locker room. I have to ask him his thoughts on, are we looking too much into this or is there more going on between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni? This is Middays. I'm Bill Colarulo along with Amy Fadul. Stay tuned for Derek Gunn after the break. back in the middays. No Bob Cooney today. You have me, Bill Colarulo, along with Amy Fadul, and as always, Ray Dunn. But before the break, I played the clip for you of Jalen Hurts' press conference at the mandatory minicamp when he was asked what I thought was a softball question about Nick Sirianni. And his lack of a response, to me, spoke volumes. And I'm hoping that I'm just reading too much into this and there's not something going on between Hurts and Sirianni. But we're now going to be joined on the Comcast Business Hotline by my man, Derek Gunn, who I haven't spoken to yet about any of this, so I'm looking forward to it. What's up, D-Gunn?
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great now that I'm talking to you, my friend.
Good to hear your voice.
So you just heard me say that about Jalen Hurts. I know you listened to that press conference. I know your finger is on the pulse of that Eagles locker room at all times. Am I looking too much into this, or is there something going on between Hurts and Sirianni?
I don't think there's anything going on between Hurts and Sirianni. Here's the way I peg it. Jalen didn't have the best of mini camps. He's learning a new system. And I think frustration set in. And as calculated as Jalen normally is when he speaks, he's very calculated, very mature for his age. I think he basically didn't know what to say. He didn't want to say anything negative. He didn't have anywhere to go positive. I know a lot of people are blowing this up saying there's a rift between Nick and Jalen. I don't believe that's the case at all from what I'm hearing. I just think it comes down to him frustrated with not having a better grasp of what's going on right now. You still have plenty of time, and that's to be expected anytime you have a new system coming in. It's basically a lot of the older system with new terminology, new formations, a lot of more pre-snap movement. So there's a lot of different elements to what already exists that has to be implemented and absorbed. So I understand where he's coming from frustration-wise, but he's smart enough to know by not giving a direct answer, especially in a city like Philadelphia, you open up a Pandora's box in terms of speculation of what is and what isn't. I can guarantee you that after that press conference, Jalen had a conversation with Nick and other coaches as well, and possibly Big Dom. Now you get a chance to get away, collect your thoughts, get deeper into the playbook, study that playbook, look at the film from minicamp and what you did right, what you're not doing right, and come back more focused than ever in late July, early August.
Hi, D-Gun. How are you?
Oh, no, this is not who I think it is. One of my all-time favorites.
This has really made my day when I walked in and Bill said, we're going to talk to Derek. And I was like, this is the best day ever. I'm so excited. But I do have to I will tell you something real quick. So yesterday on this program, we did a thing about like best couples, best pairings, things in Philadelphia that just go together. And they were so much fun to see over the years. And people had Harry Callis and Whitey. And then they did Jason Kelsey in the city of Philadelphia. And the one that didn't win, but it really tugged at my heartstrings was Brandon Graham and Derek Gunn. And I was like, wow, that was actually like a really, really close one. I almost awarded the tickets to that person just because by far one of my favorite parts of post-game is having the two of you. And that was something that we always look forward to. And hopefully we can recreate again this year. But sticking with this team this year and kind of sticking on that, kind of offensive theme, there is a lot of expectations, and there always are when you have a team that's comprised of the way that this team is for the Eagles, right? And how they ended last season. I think it really ramps up everything. But you were talking about it. The offense does look different, and when you're watching it, you can just see it. You mentioned the pre-snap motions. There's just a lot more of that. It's a lot more active of an offense. How much do you think that's going to help the Eagles from the jump? Because they do want to get off to a good start, that they do have some of this more activity, more motion, more involvement with everything. All parts of the field will be involved, not just, right at the lines.
You know what, Amy? Go back to last season for a moment. And in Brian Johnson's offense, they didn't use a lot of pre-snap motion, and it was very predictable. And you went up against some of the top defensive minds in the game. Look at the schedule they played last year. And even when they jumped out to that 10-1 start, you played against some of the best defensive minds in the game. And as you know, the more you play, the more film opposition has on you to try to figure out the little nuances that'll tip things in their favor. And I think it finally caught up to them, especially in the latter half of the season. With all the pre-snap motions, it will keep a defense on its heels because when the ball snaps, you don't know who's going where at any given moment. And when you step to the line of scrimmage and you think you're matched up against a certain individual, and all of a sudden they're gone and and somebody else is in his place, now mentally you have a fraction of a second to recalculate and rethink, okay, what am I going to do in this situation? So that's advantage offense. Hopefully in this Kellen Moore offense, that gives the Eagles a decisive advantage. I mean, this is an offense on paper that's loaded. And, of course, you have Saquon coming out of the backfield as well, who's just as accomplished as a receiver as he is a runner. So that's a whole new element that the Eagles were missing from last year's offense. They didn't throw to the running back, in my perspective, they didn't throw to the running back enough last year. I think it's going to be implemented more this year. And you look at the frontline talent they have catching the ball. I mean, the sky's the limits for this offense. Amy, I've said time and time again on a number of platforms, I think this offense should accidentally score 28 points a game. Now, I don't know how the defense is going to hold up, but this offense, with the weapons they have, the offensive line they have, and if Jaiden is on point, if he gets this offense down sooner rather than later, this offense should accidentally score 28 points a game, and that will help them win a lot of ball games, or at least put a lot more pressure on the opposition when it comes down to crunch time in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, D-Gun, you just said it, but you don't know how the defense is going to be, and that's what I want to talk to you about, because one thing that has me scratching my head, Zach Bond, they have him at the starting off-ball linebacker during minicamp. Is that just an experiment, or is that actually something we're going to see this year?
Well, it's too early to tell, Bill. I mean, right now, basically what you're doing is experimenting with groupings. When I look at this linebacking core, still, it's a big question mark to me. It's like a daytime soap opera. You know, once they end an episode, they close it by, stay tuned tomorrow to see more. And that's the way this defense is right now. You know, you look at the defensive linebacking situation, what is Nolan Smith going to be this year? Devin White, you know, he got benched last year. Oren Burks, Zach Bond, basically were role players for the teams they came in. Jeremiah Trotter, you know, at one point, they had him projected as a low first-round pick, and he slid down the draft board, as did Nakobe Dean. What's Nakobe Dean going to look like coming back from that injury that cost him the season? Bryce Huff, you know, they paid him a lot of money. They chose him over, you know, Hassan Reddick, which I'm still scratching my head with, but, you know, such is the case. So there's a huge question mark with this collection of linebackers here. We don't know if it's going to be any better. We don't know how they're going to mix and match. But now is the time where you experiment with certain groupings to see what works better, and hopefully by the time you hit training camp is when you really hone in on your set of linebackers in terms of starters. Is there
a concern that raises to the level of like, wow, we have no idea, or is it just like, all right, still a work in progress? Because when you have Vic Fangio running the defense and your defense has been based on his system, albeit now you have the guy that invented the system that you've been running, does that make it a little bit less? I mean, there's going to be questions, but the questions are going to be answered quicker for you?
No, I don't think. Amy, I always say, you know what, no matter what it looks like at a mini camp, an OTA, or a training camp, you don't know what it's really going to look like until you're running and the bullets are flying for real. You know, you across the board, you know, there's so many question marks with the defensive personnel. You know, Josh Sweat had an off year last year. Can he bounce back? You know, this is year 3 of Jordan Davis. Are we finally going to see the Jordan Davis we thought we were going to see his rookie, you know, when he was coming out of Georgia? Jalen Carter, go back to last year. Jalen Carter, we were talking about him as Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate. All of a sudden, he faded down the stretch. Did he hit that rookie wall? You know, what's Nolan Smith going to look like? Who are your starting safeties? Now, we know C.J. G.J. is going to be one of them. Who's your other starting safety? Well, right now it's Reed Blankenship. Is Cooper DeJean going to unseat him? Sidney Brown's coming back eventually from that ACL tear. You know, Isaiah Rodgers at corner, opposite Darius Slay. Darius Slay is a year older. We know he's a year wiser. Is he a year slower, or is he a year faster? That remains to be seen. You know, on paper, you got a lot of options here with the defensive personnel, but obviously you guys know you're not winning games on paper. I mean, we don't talk much about the Keely Ringos and players like that. You know, what is their status? Avonte Maddox, I think they got him on the cheap. I think that's a big comeback for him to bring him back here. But we all know his health history here. How long will he hold up? So to me, I look at the defense like a daytime soap opera. We don't know what's what day to day, week to week, and we're not going to know until we get in the thick of this season.
I love the drama at training camp. It's going to be the best kind. I'm so looking forward to it.
Oh, it's in Philadelphia. What
I
do you
know.
expect, Amy?
That's what we do. How do you think Jalen Hurts will ever use a percentage to describe a playbook again?
If he's smart, no. If he's smart.
There's no way.
Jalen is a very smart young man, and I think that was just a Freudian slip when he let that out like that, because, Nick Sirianni came out and said basically it's the same offense with some tweaks to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you expect when you bring in a new offensive coordinator. You want to enhance it. Why was our offense flat? With the talent we had at offense last year, why did the offense go flat? So you bring in somebody like, Kellen Moore, whose claim to fame is moving pieces around to try to get the advantage. So it's basically the same offense with some twists and turns to it, and hopefully it enhances the overall productivity of the offense.
We're talking to Derek Gunn on the Comcast Business Hotline. Gunner, I just got one more for you. Earlier, Amy talked about you and Brandon Graham's relationship, which was always awesome to watch. But BG spoke last week as well, and he talked about last year. I know we're all trying to turn the page on last year, but he said last year they didn't have the right coaches in the right positions. Was he just referring to the defensive coordinators, or was there more going on there?
You know what? I've never talked to Brandon about. Brandon's my guy. We talk periodically through texts, and every now and then we'll talk on the phone. I didn't ask him about that particular question. I just think it was the whole thing. I think it was a discombobulation. First of all, you never should have had defensive coordinators because you got one guy constantly looking over his shoulder, and sure enough, he was eventually replaced, and that didn't get any better. And I broke this story about, and it just blew up, and I just sat back and laughed about it, about how Big Dom was responsible for controlling Nick Sirianni's emotions on the sideline. When things started going bad, there was, a lot of bickering on the sidelines, coaches yelling more so than ever on the sidelines, and everything just unraveled. I don't think he was honing in on just two people. I think it was the whole thing. You look around, it was the player personnel, it was the coaches, and look at the wholesale changes they made in the defensive personnel in terms of coaches this year. So, knowing Brandon like I know him, I don't think he's just going to pin. And he'll tell you he might have been part of the problem as well. Brandon is honest as the day is long. And he's not going to shy away from controversy. Heck, he walked into this city his rookie year in a controversy the first couple of years as a first-round bust, so on and so forth. So he knows about controversy. He's very well-versed in Philadelphia culture. So I just think it was an overall encompass of things just unraveling from coaches to players.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you making time for us today, D. Gunn. I want to wish you a happy Father's Day. Hopefully you have a great Sunday.
Same to you, sir.
The one and only D. Gunn, Amy.
The best D. Gunn.
Thanks, Gunner. Talk to you soon, my friend.
Take care.
Derek Gunn joining us on the Comcast Business Hotline. I want to react to a lot of what he had to say when we get back after the break. So stay tuned. This is Middays. I'm Bill Colarulo along with Amy Fadul. This 10 o'clock hour is brought to you by Window Nation. Take advantage of Window Nation's 50% off sale on all style windows. Plus, make no down payment with no payments and no interest for 12 full months. Call 866-90-NATION or visit them at windownation.com. So this isn't Bob Cooney. I'm Bill Colarulo along with Amy Fadul. And we were just joined by my man Derek Gunn, who always does a great job. Me and Amy were talking about how much we love Derek during the break. But I asked Gunner about Jalen Hurts' lack of a response when he was asked about Nick Sirianni. And I know this topic has been talked about a lot since the press conference. And was there more there? Is there more going on between Sirianni and Hurts? And Gunner's response was essentially, look, he doesn't think there's more going on there. That was just Jalen Hurts maybe being a little bit frustrated with all of the changes that are going on with the offense again, and that it's a little bit hard for to grasp. And
do you think it was that he was frustrated with the changes or frustrated about being asked about it again?
That's a good point, too. Maybe it was just being...
oh, guess what? It's another time where I've got a different guy calling the play. I don't know. I mean, I feel like he's just like, I get it. He doesn't enjoy the media aspect of this. Not a lot of people do. Some people do. I shouldn't say that. Some people do. Some people don't. But I feel like his whole thing is like, I'm here because I don't get fined type of vibe.
Yeah, I don't think he loves it. But look, that's what you sign up for when you're the franchise quarterback of not only an NFL team, but the Philadelphia Eagles. But I don't know. I could understand, though, the frustration a little bit as far as, here we go again. Not only with the questions, but here we go. I got to learn a whole new offense again. I mean, the guy has not had the same offensive coordinator other than the 2 years we saw him with Shane Steichen. He hasn't had the same offensive coordinator in back-to-back years since his dad was his coordinator in high school.
Right.
And you saw how successful. Look, everyone's saying, we want Jalen Hurts to be the guy he was in 2022. Well, the one thing he had was continuity. He had Shane Steichen both seasons. So I understand a little bit of his frustration.
Yeah, I don't think, listen, Jalen Hurts is, and Derek said it very well, he's a smart man. He has been around a while. He's played at the highest level. He's played at Alabama. He's played at Oklahoma. He's played on the national championship stage. This whole, new to the media thing is not new to him. He knows he's the franchise quarterback. He has been paid as one. He speaks as one. Just because he doesn't speak exactly like, we want him to all the time doesn't mean that he's, says things that are wrong. It's how he speaks. It's fine. You can like it or you don't, but it's not going to change the way that he addresses any of the questions. So I understand if he has some frustration again. I really felt like in looking at him and sitting in there and thinking, I feel like he's just tired of I don't want to talk about this anymore. Yeah, it's brand new. Maybe I probably shouldn't have put a number on it, 95%. I should have just given a vague, he's going to regret that, and that's fine. And he'll learn the lesson on that one. Don't give us something like 95%. Just say yeah, there's generally a lot of new plays, but it feels like it's the same offense. Just give us a non-answer like you usually do. It was probably the most exacting type of answer Jalen Hurts has ever given, and he will never do that again. So I've no doubt he'll never give us anything that good. But I think he just thinks I'm tired of talking about this. I'm ready to play. And I think Derek also hit the nail on the head when you watched him at OTAs and at the little mandatory mini camp. I know the days that I was out there, it was frustrating because he is a guy that wants and demands the best of himself, and they were not on the same page a lot of the times. Like I mentioned, they were trying to run the very crisp, very exacting type of routes, and the defense is doing its job. And so he wants to get it right, and he wants to get it right the first time, and he wants to get it right every time. So I think he did have a frustrating couple of days, and I think you saw that carry over. I think he was just I don't want to talk about this anymore. But we got to talk about it because you're the quarterback. That's how it works.
And it's the last time we're going to hear from you until training camp. That's the other frustrating thing was this was his one opportunity to speak to the media for the next month and a half, and the information he gave us gives us stuff where we start to scratch our head. Well, is there something going on? And I said to you, one of the things that's bothered me is you go back to Sirianni's first year with Jalen Hurts. Sirianni was talking about, oh, look, me and Jalen Hurts have the same handshake that me and my son have, and there was all this acting like they had this great relationship, and you don't see that anymore.
I think a lot of that was just trying to put themselves on the right. I think Jalen Hurts, the best idea of a coach for him is a guy that's like him. I think they're very similar, dissimilar people. I think they have dissimilar personalities. It doesn't mean you can't get along. Doesn't mean you can't respect the coach and the player relationship. Doesn't mean any of that stuff. But I feel like they're not going to be the type of guys that are going to sit around a campfire roasting marshmallows and singing Kumbaya. I don't think.
Don't say the name, Amy, because you're going to start a lot of controversy if you say the name of a coach that could fit that type of personality.
Well, no, I don't. I think that guy he doesn't fit a lot of personalities anymore. But I feel like that you don't always have to be the exact same person. Sometimes it works better to have a different person. I think Jalen Hurts appreciates the way that Nick Sirianni is. Sirianni is more of a rah-rah type of guy, and I mean that in a good way. Like, he is a guy that's going to let you know, good or bad, what's happening. Jalen Hurts is a quiet guy. He's just going to sit there, and if you ask him a question, he may or may not answer it. So I feel like that just because they're two different people doesn't mean that they can't, find common ground. But when you're talking about, like, the handshakes and stuff, I'm like, all right, well, I don't need my head coach to have a handshake with my quarterback. That's not necessary to me.
No, it's not. And you and I said this off air. Winning cures all. So if they come out and
who cares?
They start winning games, no one's going to care about whether or not Sirianni and Hurts are best friends or what Hurts' answer was June 10th or whatever it was when he gave that press conference. So let's just win some football games. And when we talk about winning games, when we get back after the break, we got to switch gears a little bit. We'll get back to the Eagles because there's more I want to talk to Amy about with the Eagles. But when we get back after the break, we got to talk about our fighting Phils, because you talk about winning games. It was something they did a lot of to start the season, but not so much the last couple of games. And should we have expected this after the London trip? And when we get back, not only are we going to do some Phillies talk, we're going to tell you how you can win FanFest tickets, Ray. So we got FanFest tickets to give out. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back in the middays. No Bob Cooney today. He's on vacation or has some family obligations. So you have Bill Colarulo and Amy Fadul, but still have Ray Dunn. So it feels like middays.
It does feel like middays, mostly because we're here
In
the middle of the day.
And it is midday, 11 o'clock.
That's how it works.
But you know what doesn't feel good right now, Amy, that doesn't feel like the norm is the Phillies lost again. And they lost a series, which we have not seen a lot to start this season.
Only 5 series lost in the entire season so far.
But I think I heard last night, though, this is their 3rd straight road series loss. If we go back and look.
I mean, one of those is kind of a weird series, but also you're starting out the season. I kind of throw out those first couple of weeks. That wasn't the Phillies team that I'm used to seeing. I always just take those 2 weeks and just throw them away. So I'll give you 3 series.
So 3.
But no, it's true. It's 5 series total. It's always hard when you come back from, Jim Lynam always has said something. He's always wary of the first game back from a long road trip. If you go on a 6-game West Coast swing and you go 5-1, you come back home, it doesn't matter if you're playing the Bobcats, which is now obviously the Hornets. But that was when he first told me. It was like, doesn't matter who you're playing because that's always a tough game getting back after a long trip, in this case stateside. So I think we all thought maybe these are just wonky games. Like, Aaron Nola hadn't pitched like that in 2 years, basically, really, with that degree.
Yeah, 8 earned runs last night for Nola. That's the most he's given up since August 30th of 2022. Only retired 11, gave up 11 hits, pitched 3 2/3 innings. You saw his ERA on the season jump from 2.77 to 3.48 just after last night. But I'm right there with you. When you talk about a long road trip, is this the London hangover now? Is that what we're seeing, this London hangover for a team that's played such good baseball to start the year?
I mean, I think you could probably chalk it up to that. There was a lot going into that London game. They're also dealing with some injuries. I think Trey Turner is expected back this weekend. That would be a big boost. I think you can't underplay the loss of JT Realmuto. You're seeing that come to head as far as how the pitching staff is going to be kind of handled and what he's been able to do. And that's nothing against Garrett Stubbs or Rafael Marchand, but JT Realmuto was playing at a all-star level, widely regarded as one of the best catchers in all of baseball, and I think you saw that both at the plate and behind it so far this season. So there's a lot of things going into this. The Red Sox are not a terrible team. I think that they had some, kind of, all right, we've got something to prove against the best record in baseball type of vibe. They play in a really tough division. So I kind of chalk this up as there's not a lot of games where you see the Phillies get run, like the 8 runs and 9 runs put up on them. You just don't see that a lot. The bullpen certainly struggled a lot in the previous game. Aaron Nola struggled last night. So I thought, all right, well, these are just kind of 2-offs. They're going into a very tough series. This Orioles team is exceptionally talented, very young. The only reason they're not winning their division is because the Yankees are in their division. But their record would win, I think, or would lead every other division save like 1 or 2 in all of baseball. So it'll be interesting to see how the good news is they got the Ranger going tonight. So I always tend to look forward to when Rangers out there.
Yeah, let's hope. Now, is he on extended rest as well, like Nola was?
They have an extra day. No, he doesn't have an extra day. He pitched over there in London.
Yeah, because I think it was Topper who said there's a big difference between rest and rust, and some of these pitchers may look a little bit rusty.
Some of the guys like it. Zach Wheeler is he does not like any extra. He's a very methodical of like, all right, every 5th day, that's when I want to go. So no, Ranger pitched over there, so he is on the normal one. But they had those 2 days before. It kind of skewed everybody a little bit. The 2 days before London. That skewed some of the guys in the back half of that, when you're looking at how the rotation shook out. But then you saw the normal rest for guys like Ranger and Taijuan Walker.
So the Fightin' Phils are still 9 games up on the Atlanta Braves. But should there be any reason for concern?
No. They're 24 games over 500.
I'm with you. I'm throwing the question out there because I do.
24. Please call in if you think that you should be concerned about a team 20. Because I'm sure they're out there. I've seen them.
I've seen it on Twitter. So we're going to throw that question out to our listeners and our YouTube audience today. Do you have any concerns about this Phillies team based off of what you've seen the last couple of weeks? You can give us a call or a text, 610-632-0975. And let's go even more granular here and talk about Aaron Nola. Do you have any concerns about Aaron Nola, Amy? Because there's people who say, oh, here we go again. I have no concerns about Aaron Nola after one bad outing. The guy's pitched unbelievably well over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, he had a shaky start. There was definitely times where I thought he was having, you're looking back at his starts in April and then even in May, and you thought, he wasn't finding the right locations. He was having a little bit of trouble kind of really pinpointing those pitches, and you saw him get hit around a little bit. He would always give you innings. He kept you in the game, but it wasn't the sharpness that we're used to seeing from Aaron Nola. Then the switch flipped, pardon me, and sorry, Ray.
Mark it down, Ray.
Yeah, sorry. It might not be able to be added right now because it's coming.
I think we'll be able to get it in there.
Darn it. But yeah, so you saw that at the very end of May into June, and you thought, okay, well, now he's back on. He's fine. He's able to pinpoint the location, which is really important for a guy like him. He's always going to give you a lot of strikes, but the problem is guys hit those because he gives you something to look at. So when you saw him really kind of really nail it down, you thought, all right, we're back on. So I can see why people might have some concern that he could be leaking back into what you saw earlier in the season. But one outing does not, a slide back make for me. So I feel like the next outing we'll have to see. He's just not a type of guy that really takes those snowballs and kind of runs with it. He's not going to give up all of those earned runs. He's a pitcher that even when he's off, he keeps you in the game. And that's a game they should have probably won last night. I know the game before when you're up 4-0, you look at that one for sure. But I thought, listen, I know he wasn't sharp, but they should have done a better job overall of trying to get that lead back.
Yeah, and you look at Aaron Nola, 8 days ago, he's pitching 7 innings against the Milwaukee Brewers, gave up 2 hits, 0 earned runs. Yeah. So, look, I don't want to overreact to one bad outing by Nola, but let's take some positives from last night. Mr. June didn't show up with a home run, but he showed up again.
It would have been a home run. I think I read this. I think it would have been a home run in like 90% of the ballparks.
Isn't that
out
crazy?
there.
I read the same thing.
29 to 30.
Thank you. 90, maybe
29
almost,
of 30.
Yeah, 95%.
So you were at the one quirky ballpark where it doesn't work out for you.
That ballpark is quirky. Isn't it,
but it's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's incredible.
That's a great ballpark.
We can't get to the point as a baseball fan base where we're upset about ballparks. There's like one exception, and I think what they did in Camden Yards in left field where they pushed it back, that one is kind of bothersome.
25 feet they pushed it back.
Yeah.
That's way too much.
That one's bothersome. Everywhere else, that's what the whole sport is about.
Yeah.
There's a unique quirkiness to what baseball is. Let's not start to blame the dimensions there. Also, if it's a grand slam, okay, that's an extra one. They lost by 6 runs.
Yeah,
so,
that's the thing.
I don't want us to start complaining ballparks here. But you're right. I mean, it would have been 29-30. But I did see some people Fenway. Come on, let's
you gotta
relax.
Love Fenway, though.
Yeah.
It's such a short porch there and right, though.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's one of the coolest things about baseball. Really, it's the only sport where the arena you play is not the same everywhere you go. I love that about baseball.
That's what makes it great. But yeah, the nonsense down there at Camden Yards, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, that's bad.
25. You can't hit it out on that side now.
No, it's bad.
That's impossible. Aaron Judge can't hit it. I mean, maybe it's an Aaron Judge movement then.
Yeah, probably.
That's the only guy that's going to come close.
We're going to have to battle with them in the division.
We got to play this guy X amount of times.
Yeah, if you can't beat him, just push it back.
You better move left field back. Judge is
smart,
all right.
actually. Yeah.
Nonsense.
That's smart.
Well, they've got Adley Rushman.
Rushman
can't get it out now either.
Have you both been to Fenway?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was there, and I just happened to be there, walked up, and realized there was a Red Sox game. Bought tickets outside, got in, and I go in.
What year was this?
This was a while ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, bought Red Sox tickets on the day of. Now maybe you might be able to, maybe now, because they're a little bit not as good, but.
Yeah, this was before I had kids, so I'm probably going back 15 years ago. But it was great. I walk in, and it just so happened it was a special day where they let you walk onto the field. So I walked down the Fenway Park just by happenstance. I'm standing there on the grass. I was getting goosebumps. I'm not a Red Sox fan, but I'm getting goosebumps being in that stadium.
I mean, it's, historic. You think about the players that have played on that field in that stadium and the way they do stuff. It's just such an old school stadium. The same feeling when you go to a Wrigley. These are just historic ballparks for that reason. And so it's hard. I thought the same thing when I went to Notre Dame. I'm not a Notre Dame fan. Sorry. I like them. I thought that was fun. But I got chills walking up. I'm like, okay, All right, I get it now. I get
Yeah.
it, everybody. But yeah, walking into Fenway, walking into Wrigley, these are tremendous ballparks, and I think they've done such a good job of trying to keep them modern. I know, I've been at the top of the Green Monster. Those are really cool seats. I've sat at 2 different locations in that ballpark. It's a fun one, though.
The one thing I will say for Fenway, it is 2024. We can have the seats face the field.
Yeah, now that is weird.
I'll just say it. I don't care that they got a giant green monster, a massive wall, and that's hard to hit it out certain parts of the ballpark. I just want, if I purchase tickets in center field, to not be facing the monster
wall.
and be facing home plate. It's 2024. You can figure out how to make that happen.
So for those of you who don't know, if you're in dead center field out there at Fenway Park, and I don't even know, I guess it's because that used to be open. Why would the seats ever have faced that way?
I don't know.
So I don't know why. I'm sure there's somebody out there that can look it up. But if you know the answer, call us. There's a whole section. They face the wrong way. They do not face the field. You have to turn in your seat to
that's weird.
see the game.
That's a little strange.
It
Yeah,
makes no sense.
I went when I went.
Did you sit there?
Yeah, so I was working with
That's why those seats are for sale.
sports broadcast camp at the time. It was a big group.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we took all the kids, the whole thing, which, maybe group pricing for center. I don't know. But regardless,
Yeah.
we go, great experience, wonderful time, but we're facing that way. And kids are
Yeah, you're
squirmy
literally-
in general. So they're trying to move around. It became a whole thing amongst them of why are we facing? I don't know. All right, the game's that way. Let's watch the game this
just
way.
turn. You guys are agile.
Yes.
Just turn.
But
turn
yeah,
your body.
I just ask one thing of Fenway. Beautiful park, great history, love it. You could make the monster 20 feet higher if you want. I don't care. Just
the seats.
maybe spin the seats a little bit. Give me a little bit
Lift
where I
those
can
bolts
see.
up. Just turn it. Just 180.
Yeah.
There you go. No, even 90 degrees. That's all you need is 90 degrees.
Sure, yeah, math.
Math.
Go. Math is hard.
I know.
Math is hard.
I was
but-
told there would be no math.
So, hold on. What's that from? I was told there would be no math. That's
I don't know.
no, it's a movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a movie.
Don't
line.
look at me.
I had to come
Stop.
back.
I got
Pop
nothing.
culture,
And I'm
not
usually a
here.
big
Don't look
movie
through
guy.
that glass for any pop culture.
But the question we threw out there was, do you have any concerns about this Phillies team now after a couple of weeks? And we got an answer on YouTube from Jim G, who says Bohm has really come down to earth the past couple of weeks. So is that
Right.
something to be concerned with,
Yeah,
that
I'm-
Alec Bohm's come down to
I
earth?
think when you're looking at what the concerns are, as the team as a whole, no. But can you look at different things and think, oh, well, this maybe isn't great, or should should you keep an eye on this? Bohm was off to a hot start. I mean, it was something that was surprising to the level, but not surprising when you watch him, having watched him play. I think he is a guy that can bat 300 for a season. I don't think that that's a big question. But when he was out to the start, you were looking at 340, 333. That's not something, and I know we talked about it at the time. You knew it wasn't sustainable. It's Ranger Suarez ERA under 2 for the entire season. Is that sustainable? Probably not. Though, of course, I think he's going to try to prove me wrong every time he goes out, and maybe he can do it again. But Bohm's batting, 280 right now? I feel like if you told me at the end of the year, Alec Bohm bats 275, I would have been like, well, that's a great year for Alec Bohm. That's a great year. I think the issues that you're seeing with Bohm is that he's trying to force it, and that's when you have a little bit of the concerns. When he's swinging at pitches out of the zone, when he's swinging at pitches that are not in his wheelhouse. They might be strikes, but those are not pitches that he can drive. He's not a home run hitter. He needs to be able to drive the ball, and so when he's swinging at away pitches or down and away or too far inside, I feel like that's just a guy pressing, and I feel like there's a conversation they need to have about that.
Now, do you have any concerns that Alec Bohm is your cleanup hitter? Do you think that they need to figure something else out there?
No, I have no concerns about Alec Bohm as my cleanup hitter. Do you?
I don't. I've
Who would
seen
you put there?
Well, I've seen the argument that he doesn't hit enough home runs to be a cleanup hitter. But for me, if he's hitting doubles and bringing in runs, I'm okay with it. But I have seen that argument. Ray, do you have any concerns about Bohm being a cleanup guy?
I feel like I'm in a time vortex here, taken back to the NLCS last year. Because that was Bohm shouldn't be batting cleanup. But remember Game 7? The one guy that actually did something in that Game 7, he was the one that hit the home run in that game. I think him batting cleanup is fine for where this lineup is. I think the bigger question for this lineup right now is, do you really need that right-handed power bat? As you start to get closer to the trade deadline, is that going to be where this goes down? I mean, Luis Robert right now, if you are a White Sox executive, you have popped champagne at least 6 or 7 times in the last week since Robert's gotten back, because the guy just keeps hitting home runs. He's going to be the hot name at the trade deadline, and you're like, you know what? This is beautiful. As bad as the baseball's been here, that man keeps mashing. We are going to get a return for him right now. And I think for the Phillies, the question is going to be, do you start to pursue that right-hand power bat? Because what you have here, Turner, nice bat, obviously. Not necessarily the power bat, but going to be great to get in there in the two-hole and get him back. JT Realmuto, another great bat. Not necessarily that power bat. Castellanos, that's what he was paid to do. We know where we're at with Castellanos at this point. Bohm, not necessarily that. Like, I think that's the next question facing the Phillies as we start to get closer to the trade deadline. Is that something you pursue? Again, it's not a crazy concern off the last couple of games. I think it's definitely caught up with them that they're without three of their regulars, that they went to London. I don't know so much. London hangover is a nice way to say the pitchers are just not. Like, Christopher Sanchez and Aaron Nola looked like guys who hadn't pitched in a week. To me, at least, in their outings. Like, Nola especially, that's not something I grow accustomed to. The two of them just didn't look like they had pitched in a week. And that was more telling to me of what happened than like, time differences or they're tired.
And uncharacteristic from the bullpen. They didn't look great either the last couple of games.
And their work's been off. I mean, that's the problem. Like, they talk all the time about wanting to get guys their work. Like, these guys are going 4 or 5 days without pitching. That's not what they're used to. That's not. They're creatures of habit. 162, you have to start kind of having some consistency. The trip to London, great for pomp and circumstance, bad for any type of consistency.
And you mentioned, Robert, from the White Sox. For those of you who say, Buster Olney reported that the Phillies were finalizing a trade. Olney's account was hacked.
Oh,
so
but that was all over the place.
That was a wild afternoon.
That was like we bought some Bitcoin. I think Shohei Ohtani was arrested at one point on that Twitter account.
Francisco Lindor was an A.
Yeah, that's right.
There were some who didn't read all the prior tweets and just retweeted Buster Olney's report that the Phillies were finalizing a trade.
That would answer a lot of questions because for those of you who don't know, Robert plays outfield. So you wanted to power bat in the outfield. Here you go. But the amount of capital that would take to get him here. I mean, the White Sox are right. He's going to be the number one guy on the trade market, and they could set their price. I mean, I can't imagine what that price would be.
Yeah,
you're going to have to hope that another team bottoms out soon. That's kind of like my dream here, where another team just kind of falls apart, and it's like, or another bat that doesn't fit the Phillies' exact needs becomes available. Like if
so it's not
the Mets
just
fall
him.
apart, and it's like Pete Alonso's got to go. Like, all right,
so you would bring in another bat, Ray?
Oh yeah. I'm looking to upgrade the outfield
for the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're also starting to get close to the Rojas conversation, just because he's the only one with still options still.
Yeah, was it? Who was it that was on the station earlier this week said Rojas may be the odd man out?
Was it Stark? I think it was Jason Stark that said, yeah.
Yeah, he talked about Rojas may be the odd man out when Turner comes back, what does that have to do with Turner?
He just means on the roster.
Yeah, just on the roster.
I mean,
David's all right now hitting-wise.
Well, Turner comes back. So who and Brandon Marsh as well.
Marsh comes back. I mean, there's definitely some things they can move around here. I think Weston Wilson will be the first one that ends up out, and then after that, you'll have a tough decision. Well, Dahl, if they designate Dahl for assignment, he's got to clear waivers.
He does have to clear
waivers. So I
right.
think that'll be the question of, do they value the organizational depth of having Dahl and send Rojas down because they feel like Dahl is a bat, or are they like, no, we're dead set on this Rojas thing. Dahl, good luck, best wishes somewhere.
Yeah, we'll see. And we got another concern from Daniel. Daniel Miller on YouTube says that his biggest concern is the pitching regression without JT. How much of the pitching is the London trip versus not having JT calling the game? You think there's anything there?
Yeah, I think there's something there. I mean, you're looking at, we saw it the other day when Christopher Sanchez was struggling and, Marchand comes up and the first person that starts talking to Christopher Sanchez is Bryce Harper. I think Bryce Harper recognizes the fact that he is going to be a powerful leadership voice now overall, not just with the rest of the infield and outfield, but he has to be that guy now with no JT Realmuto as far as trying to help settle guys down in the way that he can, trying to give another leadership type of voice. The catcher, the battery relationship between the catcher and the pitcher is obviously very important. Those guys have to be on the same page, and they go over everything. I mean, the days that those guys get together in the morning of just trying to each batter and just making sure that they're all on the same page is very important. But it's just the relationship isn't as strong as it's going to be with JT because JT's been there, right? I mean, we've already saw, and it was something that Bob brought up yesterday. We already know how this whole the catcher situation is going to work out the next couple of games. They've told us, which is unusual to tell us, all right, well, it's going to be Garrett Stubbs this day, Rafael Marchand this day, then Garrett Stubbs. So trying to make sure that these guys don't do too much and overwork them because they've never been everyday catchers at the major league level, neither of them to any degree. I mean, earlier this year, Garrett Stubbs played 3 games in a row for the first time ever as a major leaguer. So they're trying to get that sorted out, and I feel like it's going to take some time. The good news is that they are 24 games over 500, and the pitching staff will have to adjust, and I think they will. It's just all about confidence behind the plate for the catchers. They have to have the confidence, and that has to come through when they're calling the game. I mean, it's not like they're putting down the signals anymore. Pitch comms are completely different, and I think that is something that's probably going to help them a little bit as far as kind of weather this little storm.
Yeah, so we'll keep going with the Phillies talk. Still want to hear from you if you have any concerns about this Phillies team after the last couple of weeks. But I also promised you that we're going to be giving out FanFest tickets. That's right, 97.5 The Fanatic FanFest 2024 with FanDuel will be Saturday, September 28th at Xfinity Live. All the Fanatic hosts, celebrity guests, Philly sports legends, activities, games, prizes, and so much more. It's the biggest party of the year for Philly sports fans. So listen all week and this weekend to win tickets. You could also go to 975thefanatic.com for all the details, including info for our online ticket rage, which will be starting soon. But we are going to be giving away tickets right now. So after the break, I want to talk about some Philadelphia athletes that we gave up on too soon. And this is in light of the fact that Sergei Bobrovsky, the goalie for the Florida Panthers, who's already won 2 Vezina trophies for the best goalie in the NHL, is on the cusp of winning a Stanley Cup, and the Flyers had him. So that sparked this conversation. So we want to hear from you, Philadelphia athletes that we gave up on too soon. You can get in by call or by text, 610-632-0975. And the person with the best answer, Amy, we're going to give some FanFest tickets to. So we'll be back. We'll get into that right after the break. Phil Colarulo in for Bob Cooney today, along with Amy Fadul. And I know a lot of people are frustrated that the Boston Celtics are going to win the NBA Finals. That is frustrating, to say the least, Amy. But I'm also frustrated that you look at the NHL Stanley Cup Finals.
It's been boring.
It has been.
I thought Edmonton.
You're going to see two sweeps, probably.
Yeah. NHL, it's been a little bit better as far as, like, at least they've been somewhat exciting at times in the 3 games. That's NBA has been.
Yeah, that's been boring. And it's.
Which is a bummer.
I don't hate.
Maybe tomorrow will be better.
And I don't hate the Florida Panthers like I hate the Boston Celtics. But what's frustrated me was, and I mentioned it before the break, is you look at the Florida Panthers goalie, and it's Sergei Bobrovsky. And look, if you're not a Flyers fan, you may not remember that the Flyers drafted Sergei Bobrovsky. His rookie season was pretty good back in 2010, 2011. Had an over .915 save percentage, a .259 goals against, was 28-13 as a starting goalie. But then the Flyers had this bright idea to pay a ton of money to Ilya Bryzgalov.
The crazy Russian.
And they end up trading away Sergei Bobrovsky. And one of the draft picks they got in that trade, they used to take another goalie, Anthony Stolarz, who, guess what's the backup to Bobrovsky in Florida. And if you look, you don't have to be a Flyers fan to know we have been tortured with goaltending throughout history of being a Flyers fan outside of Bernie Perrant.
I mean, literally, it's like, what do the Eagles need? Solid linebacking core. What do the Flyers need? Goalie. What do the Sixers need? Everything.
Yeah. But the Flyers, it's always been goaltending. And since trading away Sergei, he's won the Vezina twice for the best goalie in the NHL. In fact, he did it the year after they traded him, which threw salt in the wound. And now he's about to win a Stanley Cup. So it had me thinking. Other Philadelphia athletes that we gave up on too soon that went on to have great careers elsewhere. And we're going to open up the phone lines and the text lines to you, 610-632-0975. And the best answer, we're going to give away FanFest tickets, Amy.
Love it. FanFest coming up September 28th.
So I don't want to go to you and Ray yet because I don't want to steal
very important.
anybody's responses. So we're going to go to the phones first because Chris from Northeast Philly has somebody in mind. What's up, Chris? You're on the Fanatic.
Hey, guys. How you guys doing?
Hey, Chris.
Friday to you.
Happy Friday.
Guy I was thinking about, and you guys, I just want to touch on the Flyers. Patrick Sharp.
Good one.
Was drafted, and then he was on the Phantoms for a little bit, and the management trades him, becomes a pretty big piece with the Blackhawks. Won, I think, 3 Stanley Cups with them. Had a really good career. I mean, I think, like, management just gave up on him. I mean, I would have said Bobrovsky, but I felt like that was kind of more obvious. But, yeah, Patrick Sharp, definitely. It's just what could have been.
Three Stanley Cups.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on hold because that's a great one, Chris. And when I started to do this exercise, Amy, myself, and looking back into Philadelphia athletes, unfortunately, there's a lot for the Flyers. You know, most of them are the Flyers giving up on players. Patrick Sharp is one of them. But we'll get his information, Ray, or who's taking his information?
That would be Sean.
Sean's back there.
Sean, just get his information. We'll let him know by the end of the show if he's the winner. But, yeah, Patrick Sharp's a good one. Man, there's so many. I'm not going to give any away, but there are so many Flyers.
Like when you first brought this up, it was funny. So we have these meetings, not really meetings. We just kind of like congregate outside. And you brought this up, and I was like, oh, that's actually a really good one. I feel like you could also do one of like athletes we've held on to for too long. The wrong brother being drafted or traded for.
No, that's for sure. Look,
like that list, I feel like would be like page after page. Like, remember this guy, the guy with you traded for the wrong one, or then he was really good, and then he came here to Philadelphia, and you got the wrong version of him.
Now there's a few Eagles that I have on the list, but when I started to look at the Eagles, they've actually done a pretty good job over the last probably 20 years.
Yes.
Of knowing when to move on from certain players. You know, they especially
for the most part.
Yeah, I mean Joe Banner. I know that he didn't like players over 30, but a lot of the times they made the right decisions. I mean, look at Donovan McNabb. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, I was going to drop I had a drop for McNabb. But you look at McNabb.
5 will always love you.
5 will always love you. But Donovan McNabb, when they moved on from him, what a smart move that was. The guy did nothing in Washington. They knew his career was over.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that was the time. that's always the problem. Is like it's when to move on. I think that you sometimes want to hang on too long, and then you're not rewarded for it. And other times you can get burnt. The problem is, you have to know that fine line. McNabb's a good example. He was probably toward the tail end of his career. I think you saw the writing on the wall. I don't think he was surprised by that move. You probably, ideally you want to end your career with a team that you started it with, but I don't think that that's a realistic thing, certainly in this day and age, because it's a win-now result and mentality for a lot of franchises, and you have to be that way, rightfully so, because that's what your fan base demands. That's what everything demands.
Yeah, so we're asking the question today, in light of Sergei Bobrovsky about to win a Stanley Cup and standing on his head in net for the Florida Panthers, athletes we gave up on too soon in Philadelphia. So far we got Patrick Sharp, but want to hear from you, 610-632-0975. The best answer is getting FanFest tickets. In fact, we have 2 sets of tickets, don't we, Ray? Oh, Ray's on the phone.
He's I think he's probably working the text line.
So we have 2 sets of tickets, so maybe the 2 best answers. So we're going to go back to the phones. Will from Brookhaven's got somebody. What's up, Will?
Hey, guys. How you doing, Amy?
Hey, Will, how are you?
I'm good. I think hopefully it makes some sense to y'all. I think we gave up too soon on Andre Iguodala.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. Went on to be a big piece in Golden State.
Yeah.
Will, let me ask you this. Besides what you saw from Kelly Oubre, who was the last athletic wing that played for the Sixers that you saw?
Wow.
Probably Andre Iguodala.
Yeah, I went to go see those playoff games when they beat Chicago.
Yes. Yeah, he won that game single-handedly. Remember?
Yeah, I remember. Yep. I remember that game. Yep. I was there.
That's a good one.
I'm going to put Will on hold.
That's a deep dive one from Will because people probably don't – because Andre Iguodala didn't live up to whatever people wanted him to be. They wanted him to be the number 1 star, and that's what he was probably tried to be billed as. That wasn't him as a player, so I think he gets kind of knocked down a peg on that. But as far as like a quality player that's gone on to win championships and help teams like the Warriors, that's a good one.
So, Sean, get Will's information. My only thing is, and when Tyrone gets here, I'll have to ask him if the Sixers gave up on Iguodala too soon because I'm sure he's got a opinion on this. But yes, Iguodala became a big piece of the Golden State Warriors, but could he have done that here? Do you think he could have done that with the Sixers? Could they have built a team that involved Iguodala? Do you think that's possible? I
mean, I think if you look at it in a different way, he was an NBA Finals MVP. Let's not forget. It was like he just helped him. He's an all defensive player. I think he's a really, really good secondary player. I think if you build him as the star, no. But if him as your number 2, yeah, absolutely you could win with a guy like that. He did everything you wanted him to do. I mean, I think you forget when he was here, the defense that he provided for the Sixers. He was he was a first-team all-defensive player at least once or twice as a Sixer. And I feel like then you saw him to go on to be that type of player. He's a glue guy. He's a guy that you just does the little things. And I think when you're looking at what he was able to do with the Warriors, I mean, you saw that. Is he a guy that you could have built completely around? No. But is he a nice piece to have on a championship team? Absolutely.
To quote our good friend Bob Cooney, he's not a player you build around, he's a player you build with.
There you go.
That's exactly what Iguodala is.
Well said, Bob.
And that to me, I think that going Iguodala route, that brings me back to more of the trade and the disaster of the trade that he was a part of than giving up on him. Because that was the rare trade where it feels like everybody lost.
Every single
team
lost.
He went to Denver, right?
Yeah.
Every team lost.
I guess, how bad is it? How disastrous is it for Denver? They just get Iguodala, and that's kind of it for them. But everyone in that trade left that trade feeling kind of disappointed. To varying degrees. Us here not even find him on the floor is enough for me. But yeah, that to me, I mean, that's. God, I don't want to relitigate the last 15 years of the Sixers, but that's where you start to walk down. You make that trade.
That's a dangerous path.
You don't get behind them, so then what's going to happen to the franchise? Where are you going to go from there? And, Yay!
Yeah. Let's go.
Sixers.
Yeah.
This is a conversation.
We don't want to go to the dark place.
No, I was going to say this is a conversation that sparked because of Bobrovsky, but maybe not a great topic to start our weekend here. But there's a lot of people.
We got to cleanse it all out. We got to cleanse it out.
We are cleansing today. Then some bad moves over the last 15 years, but like I said, there haven't always been bad moves. They did move on from people at appropriate times, But, yeah, there has been a lot where you look back and say, man, if they only would have kept that player. So that's why we're opening up the phone lines to you. This is going to decide who gets FanFest tickets. There's a bunch of people on the line already. But you can still get in 610-632-0975. Talking about Philadelphia athletes we gave up on too soon in light of the fact that our man Sergei Bobrovsky's about to win a Stanley Cup. And we could have had him here for the last 12 years. Could you imagine how different this Flyers team could have been if they actually had solid goaltending for the last 12 years, Amy?
Certainly would have helped at some point in that season, those 12 seasons, at some point. I mean, they've had decent goaltending at times, but have a backstop like what he is proven to be. As you mentioned, a two-time Vezina Trophy winner, a guy that's now going to raise the Stanley Cup, has catapulted his team into being one of the better teams. When you win these games and you watch the Panthers, they do tally a number of goals, but sometimes it is 1-0 and 2-1. That having a proven, really top-notch goaltender has been one of the reasons, if not the reason, they have made it this far, and why it's been a 3-0 series lead for them in the Stanley Cup final.
So there's a couple of good ones I'm seeing on YouTube. We got a lot of good ones on the line. So when we get back, we're going to continue this conversation because I do want to get Ray and Amy's players as well. I don't want them to steal anybody's. That's why we're not asking them just yet. But if you want to get in players that the Philadelphia City has given up on too early, that went on to have great seasons. So far we got Patrick Sharp, who went to Chicago and won some Stanley Cups, and Andre Iguodala for the Sixers. So we'll keep this conversation going right after the break. Welcome back to Middays. You have Bill Colarulo today. No Bob Cooney, along with Amy Fadul. Hopefully Bob's having a nice extended weekend for Father's Day.
I think he's driving right now, to be honest.
I think he is, too. It's not a relaxing day off for Bob. He's got stuff to do today. But you're going to hear from Bob probably a little bit later on in the show when we do our last week's report. I have a feeling Bob's going to be on there quite a bit, Ray.
Yeah, just a bit. I might have put in a few extra hours yesterday after the show to make sure we had all of yesterday's mistakes tallied up.
So last week's report will be coming up at 1:30.
He was already out the door.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, really, with him.
Yeah, and he said it afterwards. Like, I got nothing.
It's September 25th.
Yes, that was he didn't get the day right for what day it was yesterday, nor did he get the Fan Fest date, which we've been saying, I think, 50,000 times.
Yeah, he's had a tough time this week with the Fan Fest promotion. Yeah. That's not just a sole occurrence. We're gonna have a couple of
good.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if Bob's listening or not, but we love you, Bob. Can't wait to hear you at 1:30 with all the mistakes on last week's report. And as we're talking about mistakes, we're talking about some Philly athletes that we gave up on too soon in light of the fact that goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky, who got traded away after 2 seasons in Philly and now has gone on to only win 2 Vezina trophies and now probably a Stanley Cup up 3-0 on the Edmonton Oilers. And we're opening up the phone lines to you, and the best answers are getting FanFest tickets for September 28th. So far, we got Patrick Sharp, who went on to win some cups in Chicago. We got Andre Iguodala, who became an Finals MVP for the Golden State Warriors. So now we're going to go back to the phones because Big D from King of Prussia's got somebody in mind. What's up, Big D?
Hey, how's it going, man?
All good, brother.
Good. I got another flyer that left a little too soon. Jeff Carter.
I was waiting for this one.
Went on to win cups for the Kings instead of the Flyers. And I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on hold. That is a good one. And I think you can't say Jeff Carter without also saying Mike Richards at the same time.
That is fine. Go ahead and say Mike Richards. Talk about that guy's. He was out of the league in 2 years.
He was. But that day completely changed the future of the Flyers. I remember thinking that there's no way this is accurate, Amy. You get a report that Richards gets traded, and then about an hour later, Jeff Carter.
Really? You didn't think that was a real report?
It was wild to me.
They traded that was like par for the course how that team was running at that time.
Was that Holmgren back then? I think it was. Mm-hmm. So, but the reason that that's a good answer is, so the Flyers traded Jeff Carter to Columbus. They traded Mike Richards to L.A. Carter goes to Columbus, did not want to be in Columbus, Ohio.
No.
And they eventually grant his wish, and they trade him to the L.A. Kings, and then what happens? Both of them end up winning a Stanley Cup in L.A. But, yeah, Jeff Carter went on to have a really good career. In fact, just retired after this season.
Yes, and they didn't have to have Dry Island out there in L.A.
So, yeah, what Amy's referring to was and you and I were talking about Sea Isle a little bit during the break. Jeff Carter and Mike Richards may have enjoyed Sea Isle a little too much.
They enjoyed every aspect of Philadelphia. They were young. I don't hate it. Go for it.
So
they were on Dry Island here, though.
So you were okay with the Jeff Carter trade?
I mean, I understood it. I think that they thought that they had lost kind of control of some aspects of that team, and they thought, all right, let's get rid of everybody. Let's kind of start fresh. But no, I mean, it's tough when you see a guy that you traded for basically nothing. You didn't get anything, substantial in return, and they go on to win a cup. Jeff Carter was he was a big reason Mike Richards, whatever, but Jeff Carter was a big contributor to those Kings Cup teams. I mean, it wasn't like a guy just out there, helping out. He was a very good player for a long time. So it's always tough. That's always a tough one.
And I think what made matters worse is not only did they win the cup, they took it down the Sea Isle after they won it.
Oh, I have friends that drank from it down at Sea Isle.
Yeah, that hurts. Because we've never seen, I'm not going to ask you your age, but I'm assuming.
I was not here for the Stanley Cup.
I was going to say, you look
70s.
a lot younger than that, so I'm not even going to ask. But none of us here have ever seen a Stanley Cup for the Flyers.
No.
It's.
No, we've never had a chance to drink from the cup. We should.
It's been frustrating. I'm telling you, this is going to be, I think, a long list of Flyers and Sixers. I think it's going to be harder to find.
There is a good one for the Eagles.
Okay. So if we don't get it from somebody else.
I think you've alluded to it. I think someone might have it somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, because there's one on YouTube that I'll get to in a second. But let's go back to the phones because my man Slick Rick has somebody he wants to say. What's up, Slick Rick?
Yes, sir. How's it going, everybody? Enjoying the show today.
Lordy-dotty.
A guy that's still playing as we speak that if he stayed here as Rookie of the Year, it would have made a difference for us. And that's Drew Holiday. All the active players in the NBA right now, he has the highest win percentage. So he's bounced around to a couple teams, but he wins everywhere, and he's an all-star every few years, and he would have made a big difference here.
What do you think, Amy?
One. That's a very good one because Rick's mentioned that he's bounced around a little bit. Well, he was brought into the Bucks to basically help them win a championship, and I credit him with a large portion of why they won that championship. He is a tremendous. There's a reason he's on Team USA basketball, and it's not for his offense. He's the best on-ball defender in the entire NBA. It's not even a question in my mind. Boston went out. They wanted him. They got him because they needed somebody to replace Marcus Smart, and they replaced him with the best version of what Marcus Smart even tried to do. Defensively, he is a tremendous player. He is a smart basketball player, and if you need someone to get you some points, he can do that as well. Drew Holiday is a great answer because it's always hard to see, like, could they be this guy? Would they have been this person here? It would have been fun to find out. I would have liked the opportunity.
I think so far out of all the answers, that may be
top. That's a great answer just because of what he's been able to do. I mean, he's an all-star. He's a champion. I mentioned the defense. I just feel like he's just such a tremendous player. And you're thinking, do you build around him? I don't know if you build completely around him, but you certainly have him as a star point guard, and that would be very helpful.
So far we got 2 Sixers, Drew Holiday, Andre Iguodala, 2 Flyers, Jeff Carter, and Patrick Sharp. I'm curious if we're going to get any on the phone lines from the Phillies or Eagles. I do think the Eagles have been pretty good over the years knowing when to move on from players, but there are some, and I see people on YouTube as well. So we're going to continue this conversation. This is a fun conversation, but an agonizing conversation at the same time.
Setting yourself up for failure. Like, why did this guy just not stay here?
But if you want to get in, 610-632-0975. Athletes we gave up on a little too soon in the city of Philadelphia. And we're going to pick the top 2 answers, and they're going to FanFest September 28th. It's going to be me and Amy's first time ever at FanFest. I can't wait for it. I'm ecstatic. It should be a lot of fun, Amy.
Absolutely. I can't wait for it. Everyone says, Ray, I think, mentioned it the other day, saying, even on days that he's like, I don't know, today's maybe a little bit of a tough day. FanFest keeps you going through.
FanFest has you just focused on September 28th now is circled. I told you this, Amy, the other day. There is literally a group chat of people that I have that the name of the group chat is FanFest. And I just, once the announcement was made, I was like, September 28th. And that group chat erupted. The people loved it. They are fired up.
Awesome.
I'm fired up for it. I can't wait.
Awesome. So we'll continue that conversation when we get back. I see Jim G on YouTube saying Sergei Bobrovsky. That's what sparked this whole conversation, Jim G, that Sergei Bobrovsky was traded too soon and now is about to win a Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers. So we're going to continue this conversation right after the break. This 12 o'clock hour is brought to you by Service First Heating and Air Conditioning. Get 0% financing for 72 months and a $500 rebate when you purchase a complete heating and cooling system from Service First. Learn more at servicefirsthvac.com. I'm Bill Colarulo, filling in for Bob Cooney today, along with Amy Fadul and Ray Dunn. And you just heard about the NBA Finals. You could hear it here on The Fanatic. Looks like it's going to be a sweep for the Boston Celtics. And you look at the NHL Finals, Stanley Cup Finals. Looks like another sweep, Florida Panthers over the Edmonton Oilers. So I look at the goaltender for the Florida Panthers being Sergei Bobrovsky, and it sparked the conversation of athletes that we gave up on too soon, the ones that got away from the city of Philadelphia. And we opened up the phone lines to all of you, 610-632-0975, to get in on this topic. And so far, we have Jeff Carter, Patrick Sharp, Andre Iguodala, and unfortunately, another former Philly athlete that's probably going to win an NBA championship, Drew Holiday for the Boston Celtics. So some really good responses. And we have some people checking in on YouTube as well. But there's a ton of you on the line that want to get in on this conversation. So it's a fun conversation. The two best answers are getting FanFest tickets September 28th at Xfinity Live. We partner with FanDuel. It's going to be an awesome experience. But I want to go back to the phones because we got Jerry from Doylestown who wants to get in on this conversation. Oh, actually, Joey from Charleston. My apologies. What's up, Joey?
Hey, man. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Joe.
Hey, so this is a little bit of a emotional answer. Y'all are probably going to figure it out as I go, but I've only cried 3 times with Philly sports: when the Eagles lost Super Bowl in 2004, when they won the Super Bowl, and then when they let Brian Dawkins
B-Doc.
free agency. And there's kind of a two-part to that because he went on to go to 2 more Pro Bowls. But, you know, if he was here during that 2010 season, you know, with the Miracle in the Meadowlands, number 2, you know, we lost to the Packers in the wild card round by 3 points. You know, that was a talented team beyond the fact that he was my favorite player ever. Probably always will be. Hated seeing him in that orange, but yeah, Brian Dawkins, man, I know.
Yeah, I'm gonna put Joey on hold. This was one that I was waiting for, and get Joey's information because, look, when you look at what Dawkins did after he left, it was only 2 seasons in Denver, but it's because of who he was.
Yeah, it's
right.
It's that he wasn't here,
and you couldn't. I understood the Eagles back then didn't like to. They wanted to move on from players too early as opposed to too late. And that's not necessarily a bad mentality, especially in the NFL. But not when you're talking about B-Doc, Amy.
It's, you know, it was funny. I remember talking to a couple different players once Brian Dawkins had moved on and then he had kind of taken on this next level of the role. And it came to my mind because I was talking to B. West when we were at the Brian Dawkins golf event and how many guys come back. And I think it was Larry Boa that said it. And he was like, you got to pick up a phone call and it's Brian Dawkins asked you to come to his golf event. The answer is, it's not yes or no. It's like, what time? It's just like, of course I'm going to be there. And you saw all these guys come back. And for a gentleman who's not from Philadelphia, doesn't live currently in Philadelphia, Brian Dawkins certainly has a lot of pull here in Philadelphia. And it's because of who he was to everyone here, not just to the team, not just to his teammates, but to really the city of Philadelphia. And that's a gut punch. And I remember talking to some of the players and like, you don't understand, like when you walked into the locker room and you didn't see him there for the first time, Brian West was like, it was just jarring because he wasn't necessarily the loudest guy. He wasn't a guy that talked all the time, but when he spoke, you listened because of who he was and how he played. So to have that void there, when you hear the players talk about the void, it lets you almost like, you know, and to Joey's point, like, it's emotional because the fans felt it, and it's almost like, oh, thank you. I feel justified in being so upset because those guys were upset. They walk into their locker room, and their guy that they were counting on, their voice is now gone. That was a tough one. That's one of the top 5 probably emotional days for like a Eagles fan probably in the last 2 decades.
That was a really tough one, and I still bothers me hearing Andy Reid say it's Stacey Andrews Day. because the day that they let Brian Dawkins sign in Denver, they signed Sean Andrews' brother, Stacey Andrews, which turned out to be a disastrous signing in of itself. But the fact that you're going to pretend like we don't want to hear about why one of the greatest Eagles of all time is no longer in Philadelphia, and we're going to say it's Stacey Andrews' day, still bothers me. Now, if you look at the numbers, and I see people saying, well, look, Brian Dawkins only played a couple of more seasons. I think it was 3 years. I'm looking at how many years he was in Denver. In 2009, he did play all 16 games at the age of 36. But in the 2 years after that, he only played 11 games and then started 12, appeared in 14. So it's not necessarily about what he did after the fact. It's just, like we said, he should have finished his career.
Yes.
You should never have seen Brian Dawkins in a jersey that wasn't midnight green unless it was Kelly green.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't,
Right.
Unless it was the alternate jersey.
Yeah, or the blue and yellow Jackets jerseys. Those things were hideous. But
The Eagles, anything nonsensical like that. But no.
I remember, and I was working down at the Eagles at the time when he came back with the Broncos.
Yes.
And that was still to this day, I don't remember, and I know Reese Hoskins just got a standing O and all, but I don't remember a former Philadelphia athlete getting that type of response. I mean, he did. You remember he would come out of the tunnel when he was the Eagle. He did it out
I know,
of the.
as a Wolverine. The only thing that reminded me of it is when they played Kashmir when Chase Utley came back with it.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
You don't get to have your walk-up song played as an opposing player. You don't get to come out to the tunnel to your, kind of whatever.
Yeah, he
music
came out
and
and
theme.
he
did the Wolverine.
did it. He did the Wolverine, the Weapon X, and there were so many Broncos jerseys in that stadium, and they weren't Broncos fans. It was Eagles fans who bought Dawkins jerseys because of how much they loved them. That's a great answer. That one may not be able to get topped, but let's see if anybody can. I'm trying to. There's so many on the line. I got to see who's next. I'm going to go to Jerry from Doylestown. What's up, Jerry?
Hey, how you doing today? All right.
All good, my friend.
Good. So I'm eating my lunch. I'm listening to your show, and I'm thinking hard. What Philadelphia athlete do we let go too early? Here's your first Philly on your list. All right? Let's see if you can guess. He was a Rookie of the Year. He was a 7-time All-Star, Gold Glover. He played in 2 World Series, 5 postseasons. A third baseman, probably one of the best third basemen to ever play the game. Scott Rowland.
Yeah. See, and that's a good call, Jerry. The only thing I have is Rowland didn't want to be here, right? Didn't Rowland want to get out of here, Ray?
I mean, yeah, at that point, with where they were as an organization and what he
wanted to win.
He was the ultimate, you kind of had a point when you look back on what he was saying about the organization at the time of he was right about them not spending money. He's right about where they were and whether or not, they were actually real about competing at that time. So, yes, you obviously gave up on him technically, but yeah, I don't think that doesn't quite fit the marriage of, we gave up on Scott Rowland. Scott Rowland wanted something different, and
he gave up on
got
us.
something different.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good answer in terms of, yes, a guy who went on to be a great baseball player, but I just don't think there was a scenario where the Phillies could have kept him here.
No, and to what Ray's had just mentioned, the writing was on the wall. They were going in a different direction. They were doing different things. And he did go on. Scott Rowland went on to be a tremendous player. Obviously, we know that. But it's all right, was it just the timing of it was perfect for both the Phillies and for Scott Rowland to be that? But yeah, I mean, it's a guy that you would have liked to have held on to. It would have been nice to have that type of player at the hot corner. I think everybody would agree with that.
Yeah. See, now there's another third baseman, or maybe I'm going to give it away, but someone who could have played third base that I think they may have given up on too soon if he would have been willing to move over from a different position on the infield. But you may know who I'm talking about on that one. But we're going to go back to the phones because Bill on the cell has an athlete. What's up, Bill?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
That's good. I got a Philly for you also, Ryan Sandberg.
I had a feeling that one was going to come up.
Yeah, that's a tough one just because you gave up on him. You traded away a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Dallas Green stole him from the Phillies.
Rightfully so. Dallas knew what was what.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sure did.
So it's funny because, and I appreciate the call, Bill. I don't know. I don't think that's going to beat, though, some of the other ones. But as that one came in, I got a text from a friend of mine, literally at the same time Bill's saying it. My friend Ralph texted me, Ryan Sandberg.
Ryan Sandberg.
At the exact same time. So there's two people coming in with it.
That's a fantastic answer.
You love that answer.
Yeah. I mean, you traded a Hall of Famer. Like,
Wow, so maybe I should have Bill call back. I didn't put him on hold.
Yeah. No, I think we need that one. I think that needs to be one of those for consideration.
Bill, call back. Give your information to Sean because I'm not the one making the final decisions. It's going to be Amy that's going to make the final decision. So if you want Ryan Sandberg
gavel
on there,
back out.
Yeah, you're making Ryan Sandberg. All right, so give me your case.
Given to Amy
I
this
know.
week.
Thank you.
Give me your case, Ray. So you think it's because of who they traded to get him?
It's what you got in return.
I mean, it's widely regarded as one of the worst trades in baseball history. You got like nothing back, and you sent him alongside Larry Bowa, which at that point, all right, you move on from in that regard. But you traded away future Hall of Famer and got nothing back, like nothing. And your organization from like after that trade, you get the blip at 93, but you had pretty much nothing to speak of. Meanwhile, that guy was all-star. Like,
I think that I read something recently. Like he won immediately. Like he was like a Gold Glover immediately.
He was an MVP within seasons. At like maybe 2 or 3 seasons.
1984.
There you go. Like I mean, it wasn't like he just could he pan out? You knew what Ryan Sandberg was. He won a Gold Glove instantly. He won an MVP like 2 years later. That's hilarious.
Phillies trade him in after 81, and he goes on to be a 10-time All-Star starting in 1984, National League MVP in 84. A 9-time Gold Glove winner right away, 1983, 7-time Silver Slugger winner, National League home run leader, and the Chicago Cubs retired his number 23. Yeah, Bill, call back and get in the list for FanFest tickets. Maybe I was too quick on that one. But, man, yeah, this is supposed to be – we're flushing, right? We're cleansing, as Amy said
I hope
today.
so, because that is a tough one to go back. Nothing against poor Ivan DeJesus. Like, he has just been linked to that. I mean, I shouldn't say that. But
yeah,
really,
I mean,
his name is like married with that.
It's unfortunate that you're associated there. You didn't decide to be traded.
It wasn't your fault.
Yeah, but poor us. Like Ivan DeJesus, no ill will against you on my part. I know a lot of people that are old. I mean, obviously, we had to watch you and were livid at the fact that Ryan Sandberg became what he became, and you were you. But like, how brutal. How absolutely brutal. Like in a trade where it's like, okay, you're moving on from someone that the franchise loved in Larry Bowa. And it's like later on it becomes just so much more of a kick in the shorts where it's like, yeah, you gave up a Hall of Famer. And again, I feel like I'm piling on Ivan DeJesus here, but like Ivan DeJesus, who? Like, you're just.
You know what you're not? You're not a Hall of Famer.
You're not Ryan
You're not
Sandberg.
a beloved member of the team. It wasn't even like a guy that came in like, okay, he kind of helped a little bit in 83, right? But it wasn't like
he played for
it wasn't even like a really popular guy. It wasn't even,
It's not like he was like,
Not
that's the
super
difference
memorable.
maker. Yeah. And it's funny, like the Ryan Sandberg kind of fits two different categories of like things we talk about all the time, where Sandberg was the player you gave up on too fast and probably
the manager you shouldn't have hired.
The manager you believed way too much in. He was the next big thing in managing.
We thought he was going to be great.
That's the way he was built up. This is the wave of the future, Ryan Sandberg.
He saw that and was like, I'm out.
Which like also not saying
not a great.
Not saying that he as a manager was good at all. This is not that era. Being labeled the next big thing in managing and be like, here's the 2013 Phillies after Charlie Manuel
Good
with
luck.
a couple months. Like, here's the 2014 Phillies. Good luck.
He saw it and just like walked away. One day it was like, I'm taking my Wawa bag and I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm out. I am not completing this season.
Terrible marriage.
Good luck, everyone.
Not quite
Fading
as
baseball
bad as
team.
a situation Brett Brown found himself in, but wasn't great. Wasn't great. So we got Ryan Sandberg. There's some great answers so far, though. Ryan Sandberg, Brian Dawkins, Drew Holiday, Jeff Carter, Patrick Sharp, Andre Iguodala, Scott Rowland. And this was all sparked by the fact that the Philadelphia Flyers traded Sergei Bobrovsky too soon, and now he's about to win a Stanley Cup. But we're going to go back to the phones because there's a lot of people who want to get in. And remember, the two best answers are going to FanFest. So you definitely want to get in. We're going to go to the phones. Terrell from Philly wants to check in. What's up, Terrell?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great, my friend.
Well, welcome back, Bill. Welcome back, man.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations. So my answer right here, how you doing, Amy? I apologize. How you doing, Ray? Also?
I'm good. Terrell, how are you?
I apologize for being rude. So
You're
my
not
answer,
rude.
I want to say this, man. This is how bad this guy infected the universe. This was the only season this team had a competent season. They were 9-7. They had the number 2 ranked offense. He got he's the reason why Kirk Cousins got paid in the first place. And Sean McVay got a coaching job because of him. Deshaun Jackson.
Oh,
good one.
Man.
Yeah, he even came back and wasn't even that, productive, too.
Yeah, that's such a good one. I'm going to put you on hold. And the reason that it's such a good one, too, because they just cut him. I mean, it's still so frustrating.
Bye-bye.
They just cut him. You're talking about one of the most explosive wide receivers in NFL history when you look at his yards per reception, his big play capability, and now we're going to rehash the whole Chip Kelly era, but there's another player he probably got rid of too soon, too, in there. But, yes, how do you just cut Deshaun Jackson?
I mean, if you ask Chip, he had all kinds of reasons, and he'll list them because he's the smartest man in the room, and he'll tell you all about them and why it was for the culture and for the team and whatever. The nonsense of it is that he just didn't want him around. You can't cut a player like that and then not get anything in return. You just ripped off your best wide receiver for nothing.
Literally nothing.
Didn't even get footballs back. You got nothing back because you were so dead set on trying to create whatever locker room. I don't even know what he was. I could care less about what Chip Kelly wanted to create because obviously it was just nothing but chaos when he tried to create it. But it was just so nonsensical, and his justification was after it. I just remember listening to him thinking what are you even talking about? How did you not watch him play? And listen, Deshaun Jackson is the type of guy that you knew when the time was going to be up for him, it was going to be up, but that was not the time. Later when he came back, that the time was up. But you missed out on 3 years of Deshaun Jackson being a highly productive wide receiver, which could have helped. It would have been awfully nice.
So they cut him in 2013, his first year in Washington. He has 56 catches, 1,169 yards for an average of 20.9 yards per reception. That led the
He's a
NFL.
Deep ball guy. That's what he does. It's hilarious. Oh, you want to go route? Who's running it? You know who's running it. You didn't have anybody to replace it. The next deep ball guy for them was who? Jeremy Maclin? Come on. Stop.
This is bothering me now.
I know.
Terrell's got me all angry.
You brought this up. You brought up who were the guys that we jettisoned too soon.
Because I'm mad about Bobrovsky.
Well,
I
now
still
you're
remember,
mad about everybody.
I still remember, too, Sergei Bobrovsky's rookie season, and he really didn't speak English well, and they called him Bob. And I remember Steve Coates.
They had a Russian translator that was in the house.
And I remember Steve Coates doing an interview, and they did this joke. It was a really awkward interview, but every question he asked, Sergei Bobrovsky just said Bob, too. I don't even remember that interview. It was Bob. But it was, you found the guy, you drafted him, and then you got rid of him for Ilya Bryzgalov, basically.
Yeah, you thought that was definitely fool's gold.
But, look,
Crazy
Deshaun
Russian.
Jackson, after he gets cut, there's 5 seasons before he comes back to Philadelphia. In 3 of those 5 seasons, he led the NFL in yards per reception.
I'm telling you, I said you missed 3 solid seasons of having the best receiver, one of the best receivers in the game, because you just couldn't get your head out of your
Chip
ass.
Kelly. Damn it, Chip Kelly. And I know that Chip Kelly's name
He's listening. He's listening.
He was in the media because of the fact that Deshaun and LaShawn, I'll give it away. LaShawn's another one that they probably moved on from too soon because of Chip Kelly. They did their podcast and finally spoke up about Chip Kelly. And I thought it was funny because you mentioned Jeremy Maclin. When Jeremy Maclin became a free agent that year, we thought that the Eagles were going to try to keep him, and he goes and signs in Kansas City, I think, went with Andy. And when they called him during the podcast and said to Jeremy Maclin, we want to hear, what do you think of Chip Kelly?
They called a bunch of people, and they were like,
Macklin's
nope.
like trash.
Yeah.
So there was no way he was coming back.
I think Jason Peters, we couldn't air it. We tried to run some of it, and we beeped out, I think, 95% of the words that Jason Peters had to say about Chip Kelly.
Not someone I would want against me.
Jason Peters?
Jason
No.
Peters. No, that
was a large human.
That would be just one
They called
person.
him the bodyguard, didn't they?
Yes. That would be one person in this world where I would love the love and support of Jason Peters.
Stay on his good side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he literally said it was just beep, 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 beep. I was like, okay, that's all we need to know about what Peters thinks about Chip.
So,
There's a person you did not hang on to for too long.
Who, Chip Kelly?
Yes,
No.
goodbye.
Thank God. And I'm being
I thought you meant
corrected.
Jason Peters.
No, he probably did hang
I
on
was
too
gonna
long.
say,
Smidge.
He's
Is he
hanging
still
on
playing?
too long.
Is he still in the NFL? I think he is.
Trying to
He'll
make
get a phone
roster.
call
He'll get
somewhere.
Listen, he will get a phone call. He got a phone call last year.
Hey, make that money, Peters. But I just got corrected on YouTube that Bobrovsky was not actually drafted. So he was signed as a
Oh, because he was a
free
Russian
agent.
player.
Yeah, so he wasn't actually drafted. Thank you, Matthew Gaffney, for correcting me. But the Flyers found him, and they got rid of him far too soon. So we're going to keep this conversation going. We have some great answers so far. I know there's a lot of good ones still on the line. So we're asking you, in light of Sergei Bobrovsky, and I guess you could throw Drew Holiday in there with the Celtics, both ready to win championships in their respective sports, we're asking about Philadelphia athletes that we gave up on too soon. We're going to continue this combo after the break. Welcome back in the middays. No Bob Cooney today. You got Bill Colarulo and Amy Fadul, but you do have Ray Dunn. Having a fun conversation, or I say fun. It's fun, but at the same time agonizing because of what's going on in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals with Sergei Bobrovsky about to win a Stanley Cup, who the Philadelphia Flyers had in this city and decided to trade him away because they wanted to go with Ilya Bryzgalov, which turned out to be a disaster. They've now missed many years of successful goaltending from Sergei, who's won 2 Vezina trophies for the best goalie in the NHL, is now about to win a Stanley Cup, standing on his head against the Edmonton Oilers. So we opened up the phone line saying, well, what are some of the Philadelphia athletes that got away too soon? And we've had some great answers so far. Jeff Carter, Patrick Sharp, Andre Iguodala, Drew Holiday, Ryan Sandberg, Scott Rowland, Deshaun Jackson. That one still pains me. And then Brian Dawkins. And Amy and I keep talking about the Brian Dawkins one because it's not necessarily the fact that he went on to have a great career after he left. He was in the end of his career. It's just he never should have worn another jersey, Amy.
That's what made it really tough. He just meant a lot to this city. He meant a lot to the team. He meant a lot to that locker room. And I feel like they kind of lost that big voice that was in there. He wasn't a big rah-rah guy, but when he spoke, he was such a valued leader, and I know it shook a lot of his teammates. I mean, it's one of those things, like they all know it's a business, but at the same time, you're like, you've put this guy on this level, and then you just, I don't want to say threw him away, but it's not like you got anything back that was really that, like, oh my gosh, it's really made or break our team. Like, yeah, let's bring back Andrews is really going to improve this line. Look at him go. Like, come on.
No, they should have brought back B-Dog. That one still stings a lot of Eagles fans forever. But there's been a lot of Flyers discussed, and I'm going to give an answer from our YouTube page because this is a great one from Matthew Gaffney. Mr. Game 7 himself, Justin Williams. So that was one that maybe got away too soon.
Yeah, Justin Williams. As soon as you said Mr. Game 7, I was like, and when you first saw that, it was, I think they mentioned it one of the times on the broadcast when he was on that run, you were like, oh no! Just stop saying Stop saying it.
Yeah.
Because when these guys are having these like crazy games, they show up their little bios. I'm like, just stop pointing it out. We all know. We got it. We're all good. Thanks so much. But every single time it was like, he was traded. Oh, stop. We get it.
Yeah. Anybody that leaves here and then goes on to earn the nickname Mr. Game 7.
Yeah, right. In a Stanley Cup final, something that the Flyers haven't sniffed in better part of a decade. Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah. Not great. But we want to keep hearing from you. 610-632-0975. Athletes that got away too soon. We're going to go to Terrell from Sicklerville. What's up, Terrell?
What's going on, Bill?
All good.
Congratulations. Hi, Amy. Hi, Ray.
Hi, Terrell.
Thank you.
I'm going to say Chris Carter because
I was waiting for this one.
What receiver did we have until T.O.? Like, they let Chris Carter go, and we didn't have nothing until T.O. Chris Carter became a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
So, Terrell, great call, and I'm not putting you on hold only because, and we talked about this before the show, because we knew someone was going to say Chris Carter. In fact, a couple people said it on YouTube, but I didn't want to give it away because I figured a caller was going to have it. The only reason why I don't think that's a great answer is because Chris Carter himself has talked about how he needed a change of scenery. He was a drug addict when he was here.
Yeah, I mean, Buddy Ryan, he credits Buddy Ryan cutting him and releasing him as basically saving his life.
Exactly. So I don't think it's...
But it's a great one because you're thinking, wow, maybe you could have gotten him the help here. No, but that's not how... I mean, you want to change the narrative, and I get it because Chris Carter, all he does is catch touchdowns, and he's a Hall of Famer, and you saw what he was able to do in that crazy offense out there in Minnesota for all those years. And it's hard. It's hard to watch. But... when the guy himself says, I wouldn't have become the player I am if Buddy Ryan hadn't have cut me because I had such a heavy drug problem and I couldn't see straight. I couldn't see the forest for the trees. My life was completely spiraling. It's hard to say, like, oh, you let go of him too soon. Like, all right, well, the guy himself says it. But, yeah, I mean, it's a great answer because of what he went on to do, and you just basically cut him. He was just released.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a great answer because if you look at his career, but like you just said, I don't think that we may not even know who Chris Carter was.
He might not have turned into anything.
If he stayed here. And now, Hall of Famer, does a great job, too, in the media as well. So, good answer, but I don't think it's going to win only because he needed that he needed that change. But thanks for checking in.
It's a great answer, though, Terrell.
Thanks for checking in. All right, we're going to go back to the phones because there's a lot of people who want to get in. We're going to talk to Nigel from West Philly. What's up, Nigel?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, Nigel.
So I had a Sixer. Now, he's probably not going to be like a top answer, but it's just ironic with just the current situation with the Sixers and what Daryl Morey said that he wanted and he was looking for. My answer is Jeremy Grant. Now, I feel like out of all the process Sixers, he would have been a very great fit on, the team that we have, maybe even going into last year. But I feel like we should have definitely kept him. We gave up a little too early on him. And every time, I see him play, I'm like, man, we could definitely use Jeremy Grant right now.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Nigel. Probably not going to win, but not a terrible answer. They traded him for Ilyasova to the Oklahoma City Thunder back in 2016, and he's a decent player.
I think you looked at it more. He had a couple of good years with Detroit when Detroit wasn't terrible. I think he was like runner-up or in the conversation for most improved player. He would give them 19, 20 points for a couple of seasons with Detroit. And I think what he was talking about and the fact that you're looking when Nigel was saying like what Daryl Morey wants, an athletic wing. Jeremy Grant certainly fits that role. A good defender. When you watch how the Sixers faded in the postseason this year and what the kind of attributes they need from a player, a guy that does everything. D'Anthony Melton, if he was healthy, that type of vibe. Jeremy Grant is that guy. So it's not going to be high up on the list, but it's a player that certainly would have been really nice to have over the last couple of years because he is such a nice piece, and he is a guy that can give you a lot of stuff. He can score points, certainly can defend quite well, and I think that you saw the ranginess in him. And if I'm after he was traded, Oklahoma City, I don't really remember much of his career there. I really remember when he kind of burst back on the scene and with the Pistons, and I could look up the numbers, but I know that he had a couple of pretty good seasons with them. And I know he was in the most improved player conversation at some point during his time there. And I think he's now been with the Trailblazers the last 2 years. So he's a really nice player. But, I think Nigel's point was also he was a process-era Sixer. And if you're going to keep anybody during that time, it might have been him.
So it's funny you said that because there's another person checking in on YouTube with another processor. And I thought this name was going to come up. T.J. McConnell.
Yeah. I like T.J. McConnell. I've always liked T.J. McConnell. We talked about him yesterday on the show as far as like a guy that you could really use and what he turned into be. I can't remember what we were talking about, Ray, why I brought up T.J. McConnell, a guy that was better after he left or a guy that surprised. Maybe it was the biggest surprise. I can't remember what the conversation was.
I remember him coming up. And this is just maybe the fog of the entire week of conversation. Yeah. Totally forget why it came up.
Yeah, and I was listening to the show, and I don't remember why you brought him up either.
But it was like a guy, and Bob was like, that's a great example. I have no idea. Obviously, it was something that we were talking about.
Well, if we don't remember.
T.J. McConnell doesn't remember either.
I was going to say Bob doesn't. But
there's no way Bob does. But no, it was like, he's a guy that, talk about a glue guy, a guy that you could have really used on a team. And Joel Embiid loves T.J. McConnell. And so if you're ever going to kind of run it back, but I feel like T.J. McConnell's a guy that's going to get paid. You're not going to run it back now with him. But yeah, that's a good, I don't know if it's good enough to win, but I like the T.J. McConnell answer.
Yeah,
Is that a YouTuber that said that?
Yeah, YouTuber said it. And, I heard you and Bob talking about him yesterday. He had no problem yelling in Joel Embiid's face.
Ever.
So,
He's a guy people respect.
And we all looked at him as, oh, look, T.J. McConnell, just a processor. He'll never play in the NBA. Turned out to be a pretty good player.
I will say Brett Brown got that one right. Brett Brown, he always said, when T.J. McConnell first came up on the scene, I think physically you looked at him and thought, okay, what is this guy? He's just here. It's a backup. We're in the middle of the process. He's a backup point guard. And, Brett Brown said, no, this guy can play. He's an NBA player. And Brett Brown was right.
The Jeremy Grant one real quick.
Yeah, give it to me.
Totally going back down the rabbit hole of Jeremy Grant. You do not end up with Tyrese Maxey without moving on from Jeremy Grant.
Oklahoma City?
Yes. That was the trade where they get Ilyasova, and it's a top 20 protected first-round pick.
Yeah, that's right. And then that's right.
That's the pick that becomes Tyrese Maxey.
So immediately eliminated from contention.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
They had to move on from him.
It had to happen.
Sorry, but good answer. All right, we're going to go back to the phones because there's a lot of people who have answers to this question, which is making me feel, man, what an agonizing Friday, but it's fun. Jared from Wilmington, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Hey, Jared.
I was going to say
a more recent Philly. I don't know if you guys were alluding to him earlier, but Gene Segura.
Gene Segura. All right.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So I was not alluding to him. I was alluding to somebody else. But Segura,
okay.
I don't know. I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to go to our Phillies expert, Ray Dunn. What do you think, Ray?
Gene, you were a lot of fun to have here. I will always remember the wonderful time that we had, some of the fun electric moments. Yeah, the diving play in the NLCS. You go, a couple of big hits for you. The game against the Cardinals. All of those wonderful memories. I cannot wait to see you in 2032 at the 10-year reunion of that NL champion team. With that said, when given the option of a middle infield that is Turner and Stott versus Stott and Segura.
Yeah, we're okay.
Gene, I appreciate you. Go enjoy the rest of your life.
I think Jared, when he said, I'm not sure if you were alluding to this earlier, because I made a comment about somebody in the infield who could have moved to third.
You could probably say that name. I would be shocked if that name comes up.
So I'm going with Plácido Polanco is who I was thinking. Not Segura, Polanco, because on that team, he didn't want to play third base for whatever reason. I think maybe he didn't want to play third. It wasn't necessarily they didn't ask him to move, but because he was playing second and you had Chase Utley. But I think Polanco would have looked pretty good on that team.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm okay. I'm okay with moving on from Plácido Polanco. I think that he went on to have a decent career at different stops. But I see what you're saying. Like you're thinking, well, that it would have been nice to have a player like that kind of solidify some of the uncertainty that was going on with that Phillies team at the time, because they were trying to hold on to things left over from 2011 and 2012, and you're thinking like, all right, try this. He would have been a nice player to have at that point. He was very solid bat, good defense. He did not want to play third. They put him at third. He did not like it. He wanted to move on. Like where were you going to stick him? You're going to stick him at shortstop?
No, it had to be third base.
That's the thing.
It
so
would
it's
have had
like
to have been third
that's
base.
why I think you had to move. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
But I mean, the problem is he doesn't want to play third, but then he does come back in 2011 and,
Yes, exactly.
and plays third.
That's why it was funny. Like, let's run it back. We're going to put you over here,
So
whether you like it or not.
So yeah, he was one I had on the list. It wasn't
him.
Gene Segura. It was Polanco. That
I
was
miss
thinking.
Polanco for his post-game interviews with Gary Matthews. Sarge and Polanco show on post-game was really just can't miss TV. That's my favorite stuff, because Sarge never called him by his first name. He always would call him, all right, Polanco. Never called him Plácido. I don't know if it's because, remember, it was Placido, and then all of a sudden it was like Plácido. So like people they weren't sure which way he pronounced it. And I think Sarge was just like, I'm just going to go last name only. I'm just going to go call him Polanco. To his face, he would look at him and be like, all right, Polanco. Like, what? He's right in front of you. And call him something else. But no, I love that. That's why I miss Polanco.
So we're going to keep the conversation going because there are so many good ones out there that went on to have great careers after they left Philadelphia. And again, the top two answers are getting pairs of tickets to FanFest September 28th. There's a lot of good ones on the line, but you can still get in 610-632-0975. We'll continue that convo after the break, but I also have to ask Amy something about our old friend Doc Rivers and something he said on a podcast yesterday. I want Amy's opinion on that, so we'll get into that when we get back. This is Middays. Don't go anywhere. Bob Cooney today. He's got some family obligations, so you have Bill Colarulo and Amy Fadul. We started the show way back at 10 o'clock talking some Philadelphia Eagles. We were joined by Derek Gunn, who just does a great job. Love D. Gunn. So you could probably find that podcast will be up later.
Oh, yeah.
So you could listen to that interview of D. Gunn, talk to him a lot about what happened at mandatory minicamp, mainly some of the press conferences. So he told me, hey, don't look too much into the Jalen Hurts thing about what he said about Sirianni. He thinks that maybe we were looking too much into it, so that was good to hear. But then we started talking a little bit about the Phillies, and they had the big loss last night to the Red Sox, 9-3, a bad outing by Aaron Nola. But we all said, Aaron, I was going to call you Aaron.
That's all right.
Me, Amy, and Ray all said we're not overreacting. But we then got into the conversation about athletes that got away because of Sergei Bobrovsky about to win the Stanley Cup Finals. So we'll get back to that conversation in a second, but I had to talk to Amy about something that Doc Rivers had to say on Bill Simmons' podcast about the city of Philadelphia. Listen to Doc Rivers.
They're, I think, 34-14 on the road, just period, this season.
Yeah.
But they play better on the road. You know, you're with your family.
But usually
I'm
you play
preaching
better.
the choir with you, though.
Yeah, but usually you play better at home. The only place that I thought it was difficult to play at home was in Philly because of the crowd, and I thought it affected our players some.
Doc Rivers. Should I call him Glenn? Glenn Rivers, Amy, on a podcast now saying that it was hard to play.
A Boston podcast.
Yeah, it was hard to play in Philadelphia. This guy's got more excuses than anybody I've ever heard talk.
Because his Bucks team was really ready to play all the time at home and away. Like, ooh, they were. I mean, come on. Doc Rivers is going to say that because he knows he is a smart man. He knows what gets clicks. He knows what's going to, get his name out there, people talking about it. I was at the not press conference, the Zoom. Doc Rivers was hired in COVID. I'm so excited to play here. It's a world-class town. The fans are so passionate. He left. Do you remember his statement when he was fired? He had an Instagram statement. I loved being here. The fans are so supportive. It's a tough place to play, but that's what makes it great. All right, so which is it? Is it a tough place to play and it's great, or is it a tough place to play and you can't get your players ready because they're going to get booed maybe at home because they're going to get blown out by the Raptors by 30? Like, what do you want? What do you want? He has it both ways. He goes on to say, like, oh, yes, it affected our players. You think that the booing affected your players, and so that's why you don't like playing here? Come on.
So
he liked it when he came back here this season. I remember talking to him after that Bucks game. I love being back here in Philadelphia.
In 2020 and 2021, that was his first year as the Sixers coach.
Yeah, COVID.
They were 29-7 at home. Now, granted, not a lot of fans at times, right? 2021, 2022, 24-17. And then 22-23 in his last year, they were 29-12 at home.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at facts backing up a nonsense statement, and I appreciate you for that. But the whole thing is, the whole idea is nonsensical. He just wants to try to go into the narrative that Philly's a tough place to be. Look at it, it's tough. They demand a lot. What place is just going to be like, good try, way to go? It's okay that you lost this game. It's okay that you didn't show up in Game 6 and Game 7. Game 6, at home, when you had the Celtics on the ropes and you didn't show up. You want us to cheer for that? Come on. Come on. You didn't have your team ready, and you know it. It wasn't the fans that affected it, but Doc Rivers, Glenn Rivers, whatever you want to call him, Coach Rivers, he needs to worry about, what's in his own cupboard down there in Milwaukee right now.
Look, you covered the Sixers a lot. You do all the pre- and post-game stuff, and I'm trying to remember back to when Rivers was here, and I don't remember the Sixers fans being, rough or – look, Philadelphia fans, yeah, we can be tough when players aren't performing. We can be tough when teams aren't performing. But I don't look back to that Sixers team and remember, the fans booing. I remember them being –
They were a 1 seed. One of the years he was here. So that's why, when you're giving me those numbers, and I'm like, and they're good. They're all good. It doesn't fit to what if Bill Simmons, I almost called him Ben Simmons, if Bill Simmons, really was going to deep dive into this, he'd be like, really? It was a tough place to play? You were 25 games over 500 or 10 games over 500 or whatever it was, 21 games over 500 at home. All right. How was it so tough? But he doesn't, because they just want to talk about clicks and whatever else. And it's always fun to, have the whole Philadelphia is hard to place. It's a hard place to. It's not a hard place to play. Play hard, do well, perform, give it your best. That's all anybody ever asks of you here. So like when you have the game 6 at home against the Celtics, don't do that. That's the opposite of what people are asking you to do. So there was boos there, and if that's because your team, didn't come to play, that's on you, not on the fans. Like that, it's such a lazy narrative. But I love that Doc, in one breath when he was hired, and even after he was fired, praised the Philadelphia faithful. You're tough, but I love being here. Comes back in February. I'm so excited to be back here in Philadelphia. I love being in Philadelphia. Now it's like, listen, it was really hard. You guys just don't understand. My players, they wouldn't get really ready sometimes.
Since 2017, 2018, that season, there are 122 games over 500 at home. 199 and 77.
See? There you go.
So it's so difficult, yet they found a way to win at such a high clip. It's kind of amazing just saying anything to say anything because you failed again.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's really funny here. We're not talking about the Milwaukee Bucks. Nobody cares Doc Rivers' opinion on the home crowd in Philadelphia anymore. That's so beyond where he's at in his career. It's maybe like, hey, the organization you're now working for traded away a guy who's about to win another ring, and you looked like you had no answers for your team for an entire half of a season. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's some questions in there that we could get into that are actually real instead of, let me just fire a shot at the Sixers. And again, like that to me, Doc Rivers will do anything to avoid the
deflect.
Doc Rivers conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like half the drop board here over here is just him
don't know basketball.
Ripping
It's
people.
a dumbass question.
Yeah.
Ripping other people to avoid actually answering any of the things that he has done himself.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We talked J.J. Redick earlier this week.
Yes.
The one thing that walked me towards J.J. Redick was him going after Doc Rivers.
Yeah, he was like, that's ridiculous. That was a ridiculous. And the thing is, Simmons asked him about the Bucks' home record, and his answer was, well, yeah, let me tell you about Philadelphia. All right, yeah, don't look at the little wizard that's in the back there. Look over here. Come on.
Yeah, what are we taking a
Come
stray
on.
for? What is he coming after us for?
Because it's easy. It's the low-hanging fruit. A lot of people's minds.
You know what? I'm going to go ask Popovich how it is to play in Philadelphia. Would you ask Pop that?
I was going to say it's great. You would ask Pop that.
Would.
Yeah, you would ask him.
A man that knows how to coach.
Anyway.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Damn Doc Rivers getting us all worked up. But what
It's
else?
just so silly.
We've been worked up about today is we started the conversation about athletes that maybe got away too soon. And we're giving away 2 sets of tickets to Fan Fest. Whoever gives us the best answer, and there's been a lot of good ones so far. I don't know how Amy's leaning, but I think B-Doc may be near the top of the list as a player that left too soon. But there's a lot of them. And
Listen, there's some more ones out there that would probably move the needle. So you guys are going to think hard. I've got one, and it's probably I'll say it later because I don't want to give it away because it doesn't really. I think it qualifies, but we'll have to talk about the rules. Maybe we'll talk about the rules in the break. I'll get some clarification on the
So
rules.
we'll get some rules. We're going to keep that conversation going about athletes that got away too soon in light of Sergei Bobrovsky dominating for the Florida Panthers. But when we get back, in addition to that conversation, I want to talk to Amy and Ray about the Philadelphia Eagles defense because there's a spot that I think they need to be to get where we all want them to go, and I'm not sure if we're asking too much for them to get up that high. So I'll explain after the break. This is Bill Colarulo along with Amy Fadul and Ray Dunn on Middays. Don't go anywhere. This 1 o'clock hour is brought to you by Ferguson HVAC Lyon Conklin. Attention HVAC contractors. For equipment, parts, and supplies for every heating and cooling job, visit one of Ferguson's counter locations in Bensalem, King of Prussia, Pennsauken, or Westchester. And I'm Bill Colarulo, filling in for Bob Cooney today, along with Amy Fadul. We started a conversation today about players that got away too soon because of what we're seeing in the Stanley Cup Finals with Sergei Bobrovsky, who's had a tremendous career since the Flyers gave up on him after 2 seasons and went with Ilya Bryzgalov, which was a disaster. You could also say the Celtics with Drew Holiday, who are about to win the NBA Finals, that he was a player that maybe the Sixers gave up too soon. That was an answer we've got. And we got some great answers so far. And remember, the 2 best answers are getting tickets to FanFest. FanFest with FanDuel that kicks off September 28th. Down at Xfinity Live. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hosts, celebrity guests, sports legends, activities, games, prizes, so much more. It's the biggest party of the year for Philly sports fans. So not only are we giving away tickets today, we're going to be giving away tickets all week and weekend. So go to 975thefanatic.com for all the details, including info for our online ticket raids, which will also be starting soon. So we're going to get back to that conversation, Amy, in a second about some athletes we let go too soon. But I wanted to talk some Eagles for a second with you because before the break, I teased this a little bit saying, here's where I think I need the defense to get to. Last year, the defense was 30th in the NFL in points against. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles throughout the history of their franchise. They have never been to an NFC championship game without being in the top 10. And you look at the last 7 times that they had a top 8 defense in terms of points against, they went to the NFC Championship game. 2022, they were 7. 2017, they had the 4th best defense. 2008, 4th best. 04, 2nd best. 03, 7th. 2002, 2nd. 2001, 2nd. So when I look at this defense, which I think has a lot of the question marks for this team, are we asking too much for them to go from 30 to top 10?
So obviously that 30 is heavily skewed with how they ended the season, right? I mean, you're allowing 34 to the Bills, 42 to the Niners. Cowboys put up 30-something. You know, Cardinals put up 30-something. Bucks, obviously, that was a rout right there. That was another 30-something. So they had multiple 30-something points games posted against them. So when you're looking at why they were dead last, I think that's a large reason of it. But it's not like they were going into that Bills game and they were like the defense was lighting everything on fire. I'd like to see what their ranking was, before the Bills game and then where it ended up, because probably it was in like the 20s and then it bottomed out to last place as far as points allowed, because it was a little bit better, but it was hidden by the fact that they were winning and the offense was better. Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise. Defense wins championships is a saying for a reason. So when you have to really come through, they did not, and they were porous at best and atrocious at worst. I mean, it was really bad. It got very bad. I think the Cardinals game is really when it sticks out. It's like, this is just – the Niners, like, okay, it's the Niners. They were always going to run up the score. But when you're looking at that Cardinals team, who just – it looked like everything went against them. The defense couldn't do anything correctly, and the defense couldn't stop the Cardinals. That's what we're looking at, the Cardinals. That was atrocious. But I think going forward – they rectified some of that. I think the secondary is improved from what it was last year. I think you have some talent out there, and I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but Isaiah Rodgers, I think, is a guy that is going to be looked to as a bit of a really good pickup, because here's a guy that surprised a lot of people. You didn't know what you were going to see, and granted, we've only seen him in these OTAs and these training, or the mandatory mini camp, but he does look very good for being in the shape that he is. For what that position needs is impressive. These guys have to rely on those quick twitch muscles, and it's such a thing that you can't simulate it. He talked about how he stayed in shape because he worked out like he was still in season. So he would go all out on Sundays, and then he would have his rest day on Tuesday like he does normally and he would have his ramp up workouts throughout the week, trying to stay in shape. And I thought that was probably, when I'm watching him run all over the field and intercept Jalen Hurts and really break up some passes, I thought, wow, that's impressive, because here's a guy at a position where you really cannot afford to lose speed. That is your position, And he didn't seem to lose that step. Now, obviously, when the balls go live, it'll be a different thing. I think training camp will tell us a little bit of that, and obviously the beginning of the season. But when I thought about the defense and what is something I could look to that's not as troubling, I don't even know if that's the right word, but I'm not as concerned. I have a concern, but it's not as high as the other stuff. I thought secondary was something that it was a real question mark last year, and I thought they did a nice job of addressing it.
Yeah, it's crazy that you look at the secondary and it could actually be a position of strength if all of these players perform the way they performed with just shoulder pads on. I mean, we got to take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
It's only June, but yes, Rodgers looked good. Ringo looked good.
You saw Ringo look good last year, I thought, at times, too. We all know what DJ can do, too.
Yeah, so the secondary could be a position of strength. And another thing a lot of people are hoping is that the Vic Fangio effect, that he comes in here and they can have a better defense. So I went and looked. He's been a defensive coordinator or head coach when he was basically the defensive coordinator for 23 years. He's had a top 10 defense in terms of points scored 10 of those 23 years. But maybe what's a little bit alarming is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times they were 20th or worse. So, again, a lot of it has to do with personnel.
Well, I would imagine some of those are the first 2 years he took over in Chicago because he turned that into a top 10 defense. Probably the first or second year, I would think those are like a 20 ranked defenses.
Yes, good point. You look at when he was in the bottom of the NFL, we're going back to 2005 in Houston, 2001 in Indianapolis, 1998 in Carolina, 03 in Houston, 2020 in Denver when he was the head coach, they had a bad defense, and then 2016 in Chicago, they had a pretty bad defense. But then you look as far as where he was in Chicago in 2018, they had the number one defense in the NFL in terms of points. So he did. He turned it around. But I don't think he has the luxury of doing it in 2 years. Here, it needs to be done immediately.
But I don't think it. That's why I think the 30th is a little bit skewed. When the wheels fell off, not just the wheels fell off, the transmission fell out, the steering wheel went out the window. Like it wasn't a collapse. It was epic of the collapse. So I think the 30th ranking on that particular stat is a little bit skewed.
They were bad all year, though.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
they were bad,
pretty bad,
but they weren't dead last all year.
Yeah, no, they struggled a lot during the season. I mean, if you go back and look,
10-1, it was fool's gold.
Yeah, because even at 10-1, you go back and look, and there was only a couple of halves of football where the defense looked good, and they did have some good halves of football. They did a good job against Miami, which shocked me because Miami was like unstoppable at that time, and they figured out how to stop it. So we'll see. But that's what I think they need to be. Is maybe the offense is good enough where they can get away with not being top 10, maybe top 15. They just can't be as bad as they were last year.
I think also the thing that is more glaring when you watch that defense from the year before to last year was the turnovers. They did not force teams to turn the ball over like they did in 2022. 2023, they just didn't come away with those takeaways like they did. That sets up your offense, obviously, in a much more, shorter field, better position, all the things, whatever kind of, cliche you want to use. But it certainly helps. But their takeaways went down, I think, by half. And they also didn't have the sack numbers that they did either.
Yeah, the takeaways, they had 27 takeaways in 2022. That dropped to 18 in 2023. And that was a bad recipe because they also turned over the ball a lot more on offense. They went from 19 to 28. So when you take those two into consideration, they went from a +8 turnover differential the year they go to the Super Bowl to a -10 last year. You're not going to win a lot of games at a -10 differential. But we got a lot of Eagles talk for the rest of the summer. We're going to continue with the conversation about players that got away because there's been a lot of good answers, and there's FanFest tickets on the line. So let's go to the phones because Bill from Utah has been holding a while. He's got an athlete in mind. What's up, Bill?
Yeah, I kind of got a couple, so I've been thinking about it. But one's not an athlete, but I do have an athlete. I wish they never gave up on Peter Forsberg. That could have been cups if they had never traded him. And the other one is a non-athlete was Peter, the old coach, Peter Lafayette. Or Lafayette.
Laviolette.
I'm telling you, man, the day they fired him, I was upset. I still think it was a mistake. The guy's a winner everywhere he goes. They gave up on him way too soon. Those two, and then Bobby Abreu.
Oh, gave us three of them. So Bill, I appreciate the call. I'm going to address some of those, Amy. So first one is Forsberg, and I had a feeling that this one was going to come up because the Flyers drafted him in 92, and then they traded him along with pretty much everybody else on the team to get Eric Lindros. So as great as it was that Forsberg turned out to be an unbelievable player, I don't know if I can fault them for taking a big swing and trying to get who we all thought was going to be the next great one in Eric Lindros. And he had a good career, but unfortunately got derailed by concussions and some issues with Bobby Clark. So what do you think? Peter Forsberg, is he it's a good answer.
It's a good one.
But
I don't know if it's going to catapult him to the top, but it's a good one because it is hard. We want them to be who they turned out to be, and we don't know that. But if Peter Forsberg continued on the trajectory and was wearing the orange and black, you would think you'd like their chances to have won at least a cup or been in more than one Stanley Cup final in the last 30 years, right? I mean, I don't think that that's a big leap right there. I think that that's something that would their top five.
Yeah, Forsberg, great player. I mean, his image is on a stamp in Sweden for scoring the gold medal goal. But listen to who the Flyers gave up to get Eric Lindros. Steve Duchesne, Peter Forsberg, Ron Hextall, Kerry Huffman, Mike Ricci, Chris Simon, their first-round pick in 93, their first-round pick in 94, and $15 million cash. And that's going back to 1992. So that $15 million is probably about Ray's salary now.
I think we had maybe an extra zero in there for Ray, not for Lindros.
Of course.
But look, I don't fault him. In hindsight, being 2020, maybe the Flyers would have been better off if they never traded for Lindros. But, I mean, look, I love Lindros. He's one of my favorite Flyers of all time. The Legion of Doom, I have great memories of him, LeClaire, and Renberg with that Legion of Doom team. So, I don't know.
They were always going to give up a bunch. Whoever wanted Lindros, that's how that was going to go.
Well, the Rangers tried to trade for him, too, at the same time, and they were giving up a ton. They were going to trade Tony Amonte, Alexei Kovalov, Sergei Nemchinov, James Patrick, either Mike Richter or John Van Beesbrook, multiple first-round draft picks, and $20 million in cash. Because if you remember back to 92, Ray's not old enough, but if you remember, the Nordiques agreed to two trades. They agreed to a trade with the Flyers and the Rangers, and then an arbitrator had to come in and decide who should get him.
Who got him and why.
So I remember Lindros' first game in Quebec after he didn't want to play there, and they had the pacifiers and all. I expect a similar response when Cutter Gauthier comes to Philadelphia.
I feel like that, and the thing is, it was bad enough, and then when he first came up, and I think that their Twitter account had something like, "Oh, this is the orange and black you're supposed to be in." I was like, we already don't like the kid. Like, don't put that out. If I'm him, I'm like, please don't add to it. Yeah. Please don't add to it. But they did, and of course we all saw it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that little admin, whoever ran their Twitter account, I was like, you stepped in it. And that's all right too. We'll show you.
But Bill gave us a couple. Peter Laviolette. Look, I love Laviolette. Let's play with some jam in here. He was a great coach, but in the NHL, the shelf life of coaches, it's quick. It's hard to have a guy for a long time.
So you get the same ones over and over and over again. Just recycle them.
And he's doing a great job with the Rangers, but I did love Laviolette. And then Bobby Abreu. Bobby Abreu was a good player here.
Yeah, I liked Bobby Abreu just fine. There's nothing wrong with Bobby Abreu. Obviously, that was a tough time in Philly life, right? He was on some tough teams.
Yeah, he was. And I don't know why I have vivid memories of him in the home run derby back at the All-Star game and then it messing up his swing a little bit after. But, yeah, Bobby Abreu is a good one, but not the best answer, I don't think. I still think there's better ones. And let's see, maybe Eric from South Jersey has a good one. What's up, Eric?
Hey, how's it going? I actually have a player and kind of a non-player. The first player was the second guy I thought of after Dawkins. Kind of the same thing. Never should have been in another jersey. Reggie White.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that one hurt.
that's a good one. Who's your non-player?
The non-player is kind of Andy Reid. And it's not that his time wasn't up when he left. It's more, we knew how good of a coach he was, and, we kind of let him go anyway. I always wonder how the rosters would have turned out had he been here rather than KC.
I'm going to put you on hold. Eric, good call.
For the Reggie one.
For the Reggie one. Yeah. Let's talk about Andy for a second, because it seems like every year that Andy Reid has success, we rehash this conversation.
They just got their rings yesterday, too.
That had a typo on it. Did you know that?
I did.
There's a typo, not a huge one, but they had the Dolphins listed as a 7 seed. They were really a 6, and that's engraved on the inside of the ring. I don't know how you get things wrong. No one double checks?
Clearly not. Or they just look at him like, whatever, they lost, doesn't matter.
I don't get it.
Why are the Dolphins, I get why you want to put like the whole, bracket on there, but that seems unnecessary to me.
But if you look at Andy Reid at the end of his tenure here in Philadelphia, they were 4-12 in his last season here. They were 8-8 the year before. They were 10-6 in 2010, but I don't think they even won a playoff game. I think the last time they won a playoff game, you got to go all the way back to 2008. So they had not won a playoff game in quite some time, and he needed a change. His son, that was tragic, passing away at training camp. I mean, it was time for Andy Reid to move on. And look, one of the greatest coaches we've ever seen, but I don't think it was a coach that necessarily got away. I think it was the right time.
I think and I don't want to speak for Andy Reid, but I think that there's a lot in how he coaches and how he approaches personnel decisions because of his time in Philadelphia. So it's hard to say he would have become this level of I think he's always going to be regarded as one of the best coaches. Offensively, we know that. Play calling, great. But I feel like some of the stuff had gotten away from him here in Philadelphia with some of the personnel decisions and some of the other things that were contributing to those seasons that you named, the 8-8 season, obviously the 4-win season, things that had kind of maybe he had gone away from what had gotten him there. And I think getting let go, which was still not a great day. And I remember it was a very awkward kind of interaction between Jeffrey Lurie kind of walking around with him, and as he goes to say goodbye to everybody he'd been around with, for such a long time. It was very strange, but it was, I feel like, and I think if you maybe later after he's retired, you could ask him, like, how did the firing of, your time and how did that ending dictate how you approached your time in Kansas City? Because I feel like it probably shaped him in a way that he wasn't aware it was going to. How he approached personnel decisions, how he approached coaching, how he did a lot of stuff. I feel like it changed him in a way that made him better. Personally, that's what from knowing how he was here and how he's been, I feel like he's learned a little bit more.
So I thought so too. And then this season starts, and it looked like his career had come full circle when you're watching the Chiefs with no wide receivers. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, man, here he goes, Andy Reid again, ignoring the wide receiver position. It didn't matter. They won the Super Bowl anyway.
They turned it around pretty quick.
But the Reggie White answer is a good one because he went on after he left here in 92. He goes to Green Bay, played one season in Carolina, which not a lot of people remember, but did have over 73 sacks the rest of his career, won a Defensive Player of the Year award in 1998. Yeah, but Reggie, I remember I was a kid. I mean, I was 9 years old, 10 years old when he left, and I feel like this is pulling from memory, him having a quote of God told me to go to Green Bay.
Yeah, I feel like there was something like that.
Yeah, like it wasn't necessarily it wasn't the Eagles didn't want him. He said, hey, God told me to go to Green Bay. I'm going to Green Bay.
I think he probably looks for, who knows? You justify these reasons why you're leaving maybe a place that you really wanted to and the calling that could have been there. But no, I mean, I feel like Reggie White is a guy that you look at as a Hall of Famer and you thought it would have been really nice to have him in an Eagles uniform for a little bit longer than what he was here for, because of who he turned into and because of who he meant to the team. I mean, it goes back to the Brian Dawkins one. Not only did Reggie White go on to have a tremendous Hall of Fame career, but he meant a lot to this team. I think it was tough for him here after Jerome Brown died. I think that affected him quite a bit. It's hard for it not to. Those guys were linked together for that was one of our answers yesterday for a best kind of duo type of thing. And that really was. It was that changed probably Reggie White quite a bit on that. But yeah, of course you want Reggie White here. Like you want to have him, the Minister of Defense, for Pete's sake.
The Minister of Defense. So when we get back, we'll keep this conversation going, but it's one of my favorite segments of the week. I'm happy to be here for it. We have our last week report that Ray Dunn put together coming up after the break. So you're not going to want to go anywhere, and then we're going to announce we got a couple more people on the line who have athletes that got away, and then we'll announce.
Yeah, we need to wrap it. What's that, 142, whatever that break is?
Yeah, we got to announce the winners. So
and no one said the one I have yet, so I'll say it at that point.
Perfect. I love it. So don't go anywhere. We're taking you all the way up to 2 o'clock when the best show ever takes over. We'll be right back. Bob Cooney today. You got Bill Colarulo and Amy Fadul. But I have a feeling we're going to hear a lot of Bob Cooney coming up for our last week report, which is kind of our blooper reel that Ray Dunn puts together. But it's been a lot of fun today. Me and Amy Fadul have been with you since 10 a.m., along with our producer, Ray. And we're talking a lot about athletes that got away. And there's been some great answers, and we're going to get back to the phone shortly because we're giving away 2 sets of FanFest tickets for the 2 best answers of Philadelphia athletes that got away too soon. But now we got to do what is probably my favorite part of the week. This and Out of Context are my 2 favorite segments that comes up on Best Show Ever later today. But, Raymond, what do we got for the last week report?
All right, we got a busy week here, and I'm going to just... This is a segment about accountability, so I'm going to just get ahead of this one. This one's on me. All right, hand up, Monday. I don't know what happened to the piece of paper that had all the mistakes on it. That was a mistake by me.
Oh.
Luckily, Bob bailed me out because he just went into overdrive to make sure that we had enough content for the last week report, despite the fact that we have nothing for Monday. But we'll start with Tuesday. And on Tuesday, Amy was talking about how her sons were born just a day apart. And Bob tried to do math to get back 9 months before, and it went poorly.
October 6th for Shawnee and October 5th, 6 years apart.
All right, so
you don't need, no one needs to write this down.
July. So what the hell happens in July that makes you guys so friendly?
July is not 9 months before October.
Not even close.
Bob also wanted to use an adjective to describe me on Tuesday, and either he was sending a message to management or this isn't what he meant.
And the superfluous Ray Dunn.
Immediate no.
Yeah, I mean, saying I'm not necessary, that hurt a little bit. I'll be honest. Also hurt that I didn't know what it meant until that moment. But, we'll keep moving there. Amy, you were mentioning that one of your sons won the Fantasy Football League, but you made it a lot more incredible than what it actually was.
And our youngest son, it was his first year in the league last year, and he won it. So he beat all these adults.
Your youngest son is how old?
He's 3.
Beat all the adults.
That'd be amazing. My 9-year-old did, not my 3-year-old. That'd be amazing.
It would be amazing. Would be kind of incredible.
I forgot about that one.
The Phillies this week took on one of the more iconic teams, I think, in all of baseball, and just how long they've been around, the brand they have. Bob, who are they playing this week?
Brendan Gunn's going up to Boston this weekend for Phillies. Red Sox.
Sometimes I just got to bail him out. He also we're still on Tuesday. This is
I know,
still Tuesday.
Tuesday was great.
We're promoting FanFest, right? So we want to talk about the experience of last year's FanFest. There was a wonderful band that headlined last year's FanFest.
And then who was the closing?
Fall Out Boy.
Call Out Boy?
Fall Out Boy.
Oh my. You could hear just a little bit of
yeah, your frustration.
I was like, Bob,
come on,
please. You read that promo a million times. He also tried to tell you on Tuesday what procedure JT Realmuto was going to get.
Having a meniscectomy?
Yeah.
Which leads us wonderfully into Wednesday when he was talking about a Philly he believed was going to get hot. The issue is that this Philly just went on the injured list for quite a bit.
It's the reason JT Realmuto is going to get hot now.
He met Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
He was also trying to promote FanFest one more time.
97.5, the FanFest 2024 with FanDuel.
97.5, the Fanatic.
Yes. Important little word that he forgot out there.
He was so kind last Friday to have my roommate on from London. He was trying to remember that conversation and forgot who exactly we were talking about.
So we had Zach's friend on, or roommate on, also friend, from London last.
Zach is the roommate.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Zach's friend.
I said, who's Zach?
Zach's friend is Ray.
Now, this is brutal because, he's not here, so it feels like we're taking an attack on Bob, and I don't want this to be an attack on Bob. I do make mistakes, and they're not well documented because when I make the mistakes, it's, I'm on to the next one. But this was a tough read for me. Get your choice of a sausage or bacon, egg and cheese, English muffin sandwich. I could not get that read. I still can't.
I was going to say.
I have not done well with that read.
No,
I'm sorry
haven't.
to Wendy's.
They give us those good sandwiches, and you can't pronounce it.
No, I can't pronounce it in the slightest. Something that Bob couldn't pronounce this week. He plays right field for the Phils.
Nick Castellanos and...
I looked at you right for that one. I was like, what? Who is it?
This is starting to become a reoccurring theme where he just forgets the day of the week.
middays on this beautiful Wednesday, or Thursday, rather.
Oh. He does that. He's done that multiple times.
The Celtics on the cusp of an NBA title. Who coached them before Missoula?
The coaching thing with Uduke. What's his name? Don't look at me like that. Just give me the name.
I stared at him. I was like, I wanted him to go ahead and let that one out there.
Yeah.
The vowel was just slightly off at the end.
Yeah.
Udoka.
Does coach the Rockets. Okay, it's fine.
He's a current coach.
Yeah.
He's currently in the league.
Bob, yesterday, when we were talking about some legendary duos, brought up a legendary Eagles wide receiver.
Played alongside Reggie Brown, because Reggie Brown got better and better and better.
We're looking for Reggie White and Jerome Brown.
I was like, you combine them. That would be a heck of a player.
Reggie Brown. There was a Reggie Brown, but
there was.
He was a wide receiver, not a defensive lineman.
No, I messed up another update. Brandon Marsh began his rehab assignment tonight. He will begin his rehab assignment tonight. If I can read, that would be great.
Thursday was tough.
Yeah, no, it's
okay.
tough. Speaking of FanFest promotions from earlier, we have one more FanFest snafu.
And I got to remind you all about FanFest.
When FanFest is.
It is on September 25th. We are in partnership once again.
28th.
Yes. You had to jump in there quick.
Yeah, well, I just don't want people to get the wrong idea that FanFest is on a Wednesday.
Or that it's a 3-day event.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more than happy to hang out there for a few days, but
Xfinity Live on 25th, 27th.
Yeah, so that is your last week
That's
report.
Good stuff.
Amy, you were spared of your switch flipping earlier.
Thank you.
But that has been our week here on the Midday
I was
Show.
on there. I was on
Man,
there.
I do hope Bob's listening because I don't want to be talking behind his back, but man, that was a lot of
he
good
goes
stuff
back
with
and
Bob.
listens. This is Donna and Jenna's favorite segment.
It is.
So.
They love it. His wife and daughter tune in for this one, and they make sure that they clip it off of the podcast.
It is a good segment. I'm happy I was not a part of it. No mistakes by me. That's great. I just jinxed myself for the weekend.
I was going to say, that's not good.
Just jinxed myself for the weekend.
Somebody's always listening. Somebody will catch it.
Yeah, someone will always get you. So we're almost to the end of the show, and we have two sets of FanFest tickets, which are September 28th, Ray, not September 25th, as Bob made the mistake, but September 28th, and we're giving them to the two best answers for a Philly athlete that got away too soon, and this is in light of the fact that Sergei Bobrovsky has had a great career after the Flyers moved on too quickly. We've had some great answers, but I want to get back to the phones because there's a lot of people who have some more. Let's go to Rick from Warminster. What's up, Rick?
Yeah, how you doing, Bill and Amy? Amy, great job as always.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay, I have a good one for you. How about Rod Brindamore? The Flyers traded Brindamore for Keith Primo because of Lindros's concussion problem, and Brindamore goes on to win the Stanley Cup with Carolina.
Well, that's a good one. I'm going to put him on hold. Amy's the final decision maker, but yeah, I hated that trade. Rod Brindamore was a true leader. Mm-hmm. But when you got Primo was, you thought he was going to be a good player. He had issues too.
He had some injury issues, but he was supposed to be, that would look like it was going to be an even trade.
Yeah, when you made the trade, and unfortunately concussions derailed Primo's career as well. Good answer, but I don't know, Amy. You're the final decision maker. I do think there are better ones, but thank you for checking in, Rick. We're going to start getting through these a little quicker because we only have until 2 o'clock. And we
got to give these tickets away.
Got to get a winner. So Bob from Des Moines has somebody. What's up, Bob?
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. I'll make it quick because we're running on time. I don't think I'll win. But when I was a kid, Richie Allen, boy, could he smack him out of Connie Mack. And the baby bull, Greg Luzinski. I hated to see those guys in a White Sox uniform as I was growing up afterwards. They both should have retired as Phillies.
Good call. Yeah, really good call. I got to be honest, I'm too young to remember it, but
the Bull's obviously very well liked, I think, on that one.
Yeah, when I was doing some research.
Got a restaurant at Citizens Bank Park that kind of lets you everything you know.
Yeah, exactly. I've eaten
know everything about him.
Pretty good, too. But when I was doing some research before the show, when I came up with this topic, those names came up in a couple of articles I was reading of players. So definitely a good answer. Let's get one more call in. We're going to go to Brandon from South Philly. Who you got, Brandon?
Hi. I just couldn't help but think about the last few years of the seasons, and I couldn't help but think, how different it would be if we had Mikal Bridges.
Mikal Bridges.
Oh, that's Amy's. I'm putting you on hold. That was Amy's.
That's who I first. And so Brandon, and maybe we'll have Ray, what do you think? So I think it counts because it wasn't a draft night trade in the traditional sense where you made the trade ahead of time and that team is drafting basically for you, right?
Tyrone's on record out in the.
Tyrone has his own
no.
show.
Yeah,
okay?
he said that it doesn't count.
Litigated on the best show ever. This is middays. Okay, this is middays. Ray is our middays producer. He wore the hat. It said Sixers. There's a whole press conference of him out there, how excited he is to play for his hometown team. He went to Great Valley High School.
You could not have given up on a guy sooner. Actually,
Right?
there is no other possible
It's
way.
the quickest give up of all time.
So I'm voting that it counts. I'm disagreeing
too.
with Ty on this one. I think that it should count because you're right. It wasn't as if they traded the draft pick and then he gets
It's not like
drafted. They had him.
The Suns didn't call up and say, you know who we would really like? We would really like Mikal. No, the Sixers thought, we need a 3-and-D fella. We got one. Mikal Bridges, the Suns said, oh, no, but don't you want another pick? Don't you want to take a different player? Don't you want Landry Shamet?
We got one more before the break. Let's go to Wes from
You got to
Flemington.
cut me off on that one because I could be here for a while.
What's up, Wes?
Hey, guys. I'm apologizing. First time I've had a chance to listen to you both. This is an excellent show. Amy Fadul, you are the Cher of sports media. Everybody knows you from your wonderful work on TV. And now here it is. You may be the best radio
Wes.
talk show
A Renaissance woman.
Thank you, my friend.
Cher is still a great performer singing-wise. Everybody knows her singing career. But if you've seen her act in films, she's a tremendous actress.
Moonlight,
So, Amy,
tremendous movie.
you are the Cher of sports broadcasting.
Thank
I
you.
am never going to miss you again on the radio. Now,
that's nice.
I think it's really difficult to top Richie Allen. I'm 60. I was pretty young when he was here. I was only 1 year old when he was a rookie. But I'll give you Dave Smoke Stewart, an incredible pitching career after the Phillies unloaded him rather unceremoniously.
Unceremoniously unloaded. That's important, Wes. That's important.
Appreciate the call. Appreciate the kind words about Amy. She is awesome.
Well, thanks you. Well, this is,
Does a great
turned into
job,
that.
TV and radio.
I'll be on tonight for Phillies if you guys are interested in watching some Phillies stuff.
Always.
Pre and post game.
Always busy. All right, so we have a long list of athletes. We have to pick a winner. When we get back, I want to read off some that didn't get said today. I want to see if Ray has anybody that didn't get said. And then Amy's going to pick the winner for FanFest tickets. So are not going to want to go anywhere.
Oh,
I said
see?
I don't make mistakes.
That's
I just made
after.
the mistake. So keep it here.
It's too late.
Too late. Keep it here. We're going to announce the winners right after the break. Adam. Appreciate everybody who tuned in today. I'm Bill Colarulo in for Bob Cooney, along with Amy Fadul and Raymond Dunn. Not the superfluous Ray Dunn, as he was called earlier.
He would never be superfluous.
But we're having some fun today.
I don't know. I might be in some trouble.
Superfluous? I know. We did get a text.
Bob texted you. I didn't get text. I didn't get it, Bob. So Bob's not mad at me. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, because you don't put the report together.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
We're going.
I mean, superfluous was ridiculous, though. You're not superfluous.
Can you share the text?
I think the exact phrasing was, "You're dead to me, Dunn."
Exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It started with, "Oh, I'm listening."
You're dead to me, Dunn.
Yeah, so that's not going to go too well. I hope everyone enjoys their weekend.
Monday will be fun.
Well, Bob, if it makes you feel any better, put a smile on all our faces.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
We did.
And I think
it's not going to make it any better
Donna
for
and
us.
Jenna are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I would protect yourselves in this one.
Don't
Let Bob and I fight this one out to the end.
Happy Father's Day, Bob.
Exactly.
I said to Ray before he played it, don't play these.
now you've gone the other way.
You're saving yourself.
Now we've gone the opposite way.
Bob gets all upset that Amy and I team up against him, and now all of a sudden he's
Bill's in
back.
there.
Nothing to do with it, Bob.
Wow.
Nothing to do with
Wow.
it. Obviously kidding. I loved it. Loved every second of it. But we got to get to winners here.
Yes.
And before we do, so let's recap. Sergei Bobrovsky was what sparked this whole conversation because the Flyers gave up on him very early after 2 seasons, and he goes on to have a tremendous career. 2 Vezinas. Now looks like he's going to win a Stanley Cup in Florida. So we were saying, well, what athletes have gotten away too soon? And there was a bunch named. Chris Carter was one that we both agreed kind of, look, even though he went on to have a great career, it was needed. So we're not putting him in the final contention. But there's been a lot of other good ones. Deshaun Jackson, Brian Dawkins, Ryan Sandberg, Reggie White.
Drew Holiday,
Richie Allen, Jeff Carter, Patrick Sharp, Andre Iguodala, Mikal Bridges, Bobby Abreu. But surprisingly, there was a few that weren't said. So before we get Amy's decision on our top 2 who are going to win FanFest tickets, a great prize. Ray, was there any that you had in mind that didn't get named?
I'm trying to roll through some of these, and some of these are so context driven. Like they move on from them, and you're like, well, why would you do that? But ultimately, we talked about Cliff Lee before the show, and it's like, well, you were told you had to move on Cliff Lee to get Roy Halladay, so
there you go.
you do that.
Then he came back.
So I think there's some of them. LaShawn and Deshaun were the ones I think for people of my age stick out to you because you were at that childhood what. How could you not want that player? What?
That seems fun.
And Chip being Chip, but no, I don't think there's anything I don't know if there was an egregious miss from us. I mean, there was the text line was freaking out to get Reggie White on there the entire
Reggie
show.
White finally. Eric came in with Reggie White, which I think was a good one.
Reggie White getting on there was important. But yeah, I don't know if there's a ton that I have my own personal joke ones, but not real ones. That we were doing before the show. It starts devolving into
of course.
Oh yeah, this person.
Forget about that guy. He was so important.
So there was one that I did see on our YouTube chat, and I had this on my list of potentially saying. And it was Curt Schilling.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit before the show, Amy and I, about Curt Schilling. You may not like him as a human being, some people, a lot of people. But what he did after he left Philadelphia was pretty impressive as a pitcher.
I mean, yes. That was my friend Kate actually texted me, and she's like, has anybody said Curt Schilling? And I was like, oh, maybe people are scared to say Curt Schilling. But his performances with both the Diamondbacks and the Red Sox, stuff of legend, really. I mean, when you think about it, what he was able to do in the World Series that he won and the rate at which he pitched and the longevity that he pitched, he's a good answer.
Now, was the sock actually blood, or did they paint that on there, Ray?
Pig's blood. No, I have no idea.
It was painted.
It was painted on.
We're all conspiracy theorists.
That was the rumor. It was painted on.
Whatever it was good.
So we only got a couple minutes left. Amy, who are the winners of FanFest tickets?
So, do I get a drum roll? Give me a drum roll. I got a top 4. My top 4 are Reggie White, Brian Dawkins, Mikal Bridges, and Ryan Sandberg. And I'm going with Bill with Ryan Sandberg and Jim with Mikal Bridges.
Wow.
Those are my winners. Jim and Bill. I'm glad Bill called back after you.
Ricky Batalico just put thumbs down behind your back. I don't know who he wanted.
But best show ever. Okay, Ricky, you get it's nice to see Ricky in studio, by the way. Ricky's going to be here in studio, but no, I get it. Mikal Bridges is going to be a divisive one because he wasn't here technically, but he was. He was drafted. You had him. And now you talk about how you need a 3-and-D player. That's the most laughable part of it. You couldn't have gotten rid of him faster. physically impossible. Ryan Sandberg, because he went on to be a Hall of Famer and you knew he was good. It wasn't like he was a guy that you thought, hey, he might pan out.
Yeah, and
he did pan out. He'd already panned out.
We looked at Sandberg's stats. He did it so quickly, too, after he left. I think Ray supports that decision because he was all in on the Sandberg one.
Yeah, I was all in the Sandberg one. I'm so intrigued as to what the Ricky Bo happenings are.
I don't know what he's
so
mad
what
about.
did you disagree with, Ricky?
The Mikal Bridges? You disagree with Mikal? Ryan?
He was just thumbs downing Amy.
Yeah, he just came into the studios like, I don't even want it. He was just,
He's just being Ricky.
Yeah, I haven't seen the guy in a few days. I thought it would be like a nice smile. Hey, man, how you doing?
Yeah, it's nice to see him in person.
It's good to see Ricky.
I get to see him in person, obviously, at NBC Sports Philadelphia. But it was nice I got to see him today, too, because he's
starting to cut down our, talking down the line here, too. He's like, oh, yeah, it works. It's on. Usually I get a chance at 142 when he's down there, like, hey, Ricky, how are you?
No, we're all good.
No, he just sends me a text.
Now he's the expert. He can turn everything on himself, I think.
He just
Ricky Radio Room is what we're talking about.
Yeah, he doesn't want to talk to me what it is. I get it. Understandable.
And all of you out there are going to be lucky because you're going to get to hear Ricky Bo for the next 4 hours. Coming up on the best show ever with Tyrone and Silvana. I'm sure they got a fun show planned as usual. But a big thank you to our producer, Ray. Thank you to Amy Fadul and all of you.
Thanks for having me.
For checking in today. It was a fun show, a great show. Keep it here for the best show ever, and check me out all weekend, Saturday and Sunday morning. I'll be on 9 to 12, back to my regular spot. So looking forward to it. Have a great weekend, everybody, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.